Hello, 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 everyone. This is Dr. David Snider here, and welcome to Face Reading for Fun and Profit. Over the next 2.5 to 3 hours, I'm going to be your guide through one of the most fascinating and useful skills that you will ever discover. But before I get into the body of tonight's content, which is obviously because of the content is going to be somewhat visual heavy, I do want to take some time to get to know you guys a little better and kind of give you a little bit of background on what exactly we're going to be doing today. So one of the things that I want you to understand is today is all about giving you powerful, actionable, useful information that you can take out into the world and begin using right away to make your life exactly what you want it to be. I've been studying behavioral science and applications for most of my adult life. Usually, and mostly a lot of that was because of some horrendous experiences I had as a child, learning about, with a lack of social skills and overly sensitive nervous system. I was the target of a lot of bullying and picking on growing up. And I became obsessed very, very early on in being able to size people up to figure out, who can I trust? Who can I not trust? Who's most likely trying to manipulate me or use me? Who is somebody that I can bond with, I can connect with, that I can trust? So these were things that motivated me very, very early on to overcome problems that I was having. And so a lot of us are fascinated with personality. We're fascinated with behavior. We're fascinated with why we do the things we do and how we can begin to change those things in a powerful, organic way. To me, face reading has been a godsend. Now, prior to me learning face reading, I was big into handwriting analysis. And one of the things I discovered as I kind of compared the two disciplines was how much they have in common. So before we get into the meat of tonight, which is all about discovering how people think, feel, and behave, how to read the repressed emotions on people's faces, how to influence and persuade people using that knowledge and information, and even to begin to, in such places like business, sexual and romantic compatibility, much, much more. One of the things I want to do is I want to kind of give you a little bit of a preface, if I can, about what to expect tonight and how things work. So first and foremost, if you are a newbie to Planet David, I want you to go ahead and type your name, where you're checking in from, and say first time. Go ahead and type that in the chat. Those of you joining us through YouTube, I know a lot of you are. You were on here like 45 minutes ago, just chomping at the bit to get into the meat of tonight's training. And I'm happy to do that, but I want us to kind of lay the groundwork first. So we have Tatiana as a first timer. We have Sarah, and welcome Nicole, first time from Rhode Island. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Lee from Texas, welcome, my friend. Welcome. All right, and for those of you, there's Mike, and we've got Miliad coming in. Lots of good names are flooding in. So a couple of things. As we go through the content of tonight's webinar, you don't have to believe, I'm going to give you a few caveats. We're going to go over a few principles, and then we're going to get into the bulk of the training for tonight. And tonight is a training. Okay. If you're used to the classical types of webinars where you log on and people tease you with stuff for 90 minutes and then say, if you want all the answers to those questions, buy my $1 million product, right? You're probably going to be a little bit like, what's going on here? Why is he giving us all this stuff away for free? It's because I think it's important that people be able to experience the power of something before they decide to jump in further. And if this is the scope of everything that there is to know in the art and science of face reading, and it is art and it is science, we have time for this much. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to endeavor to take you as deep down this rabbit hole as humanly possible. I'm going to teach you the fundamentals, the basics, the things that to me, when I came into this study, gave me the biggest bang for my buck in terms of applicability, right? Because face reading is a massive ocean, right? So where to start? You're going to have questions. Now, there's 3 ways to get your questions answered on tonight's webinar. A, type it in the chat, right? Obviously, if the question you're asking is relevant to where we are in the webinar class tonight, then I will be happy to answer those questions right then, right there. As you can see, there's lots of people because we're actually streaming this to about 6 different platforms. So I see chats like you would not believe, right? There's a lot of chat going on. Things are flying by. If I don't see your question, keep asking it. If after 5 or 6 times of you typing the chat in, it's still not being answered, then you have two other choices as to how to proceed with getting your question answered. A, where are my veterans? Those of you in Planet David who have been around for 5, 6, 7 months or longer, who've been using this material, go ahead and type your name, where you're checking in from, and how long you've been in Planet David. So our new people can meet you and figure out who you are. Go ahead and do that now. If you haven't figured it out, when I teach classes, I am extremely big on interactiveness. Okay. And that's how you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck out of tonight's webinar. There's going to be things that I'm going to ask you to do. There's going to be times I'm going to ask you to get out a piece of paper and a pencil. I'm going to ask you to write things down. The more you actually get up and do these drills and follow along with the program, the more powerfully you'll experience these things. And that's the goal. You see, if I just throw information at you, yeah, you learned something and you get a little bit of a dopamine rush, but I haven't empowered you in any way. But if I give you an experience, if I give you, like, you started the webinar one way and now the world is different because of the drill, then I've given you an experience that will open doors for you. And that's my goal. Okay. Now, for those of you, for my veterans, you're going to be my assistants tonight. If you see people asking the same question in the chat and I'm not answering it, but you have a direct experience answering that question, then I would ask that you reach out to that person through the chat or private message or whatever service you have available and give them the answer to that question. But only do that if you've actually used our technologies to fix or solve that problem. Does that make sense? If that's cool, type that in the chat. New people, if you're okay with that, type that's cool with me in the chat. Okay. The final way to get your questions answered, and this is the one that where you get a direct answer from me all the time. If by the end of the webinar you have questions that I haven't answered, there will always be whenever I do a webinar, unless I say otherwise, there will always be a replay. And YouTube is going to make this replay available to you probably within 20 to 30 minutes after we log off. And you're going to want to stay on all the way to the end of the night's webinar, because we do have offers connected to this training. So if you decide that this is something that can give you an extreme level of leverage in your life, which, by the way, I've met very few things in the world that can give you the kind of leverage in any social, business, romantic, or legal situation than face reading. The closest thing being, or the only thing maybe even more powerful than face reading, or as powerful, is the hypnotic principles and the influence principles that we teach. When you put them together, you get a whole that's greater than the sum of the parts. You can look at people and instantly know what buttons to press, what buttons to avoid, who to be in that situation, so that the person you're seeking to influence responds to you in the way that's most favorable to you getting what you want. And tonight really is about you getting what you want. So at the end of this webinar tonight, when the replay goes live, go to the comment section, and if there's a question we haven't answered, all you really need to do is just type your question in there. And I like I said, I make it a practice 5, 6 times a day. Many times I go back through the comments and questions in our YouTube channel, and I go out there to and I physically answer them. And if I have the answer, I'll tell you. If I don't, I'll tell you that too. So let's talk about other things. First of all, if politically incorrect language, colorful metaphors, swearing, or the word boobies offends you, this is probably not the best use of your next 2.5 to 3 hours. My goal is never to offend anyone, but my presentation style can be a bit provocative, and quite frankly, I love being politically incorrect. I love, giving a little shock effect, right? And it's worked for me from a therapeutic standpoint for many, many years. But one of the things I want to encourage you, if something I do say does create an over-the-top emotional response in you, I want you to do a couple of things. First and foremost, realize that there's something there that needs exploration. Point to where you feel it. And if we have time, I'll show you a couple of techniques at the end of the webinar that you can use to just resolve those negative emotions and those limiting beliefs and things of that nature. Okay. It's all about experience. It's all about empowerment. Now, tonight's webinar is going to come to you in 3 phases. The first phase is the foundations phase. This is where we show you in as direct a way as possible the fundamentals of how to read faces, what we look for from an influence, persuasion, and often behavioral profiling perspective. Understand that the behavior and personality side of face reading is this in a spectrum that's like this. The particular system that I'm sharing with you is actually derived from medical face reading, from Chinese medicine. And so this is the exact same system that we would use to diagnose your heart, your liver, your kidney, your stomach, your spleen. And there are charts and graphs for that, but each of those areas of the face also has emotions linked to it through the Chinese medical systems. Now, what's interesting is a lot of the moderns, because of big data, because of these quantum computers that we have now, we can begin to explore a lot of different facial traits, and using these big data computers actually start to see correlations between hormonal pathways, behavioral tendencies, and things of that nature. So there are actually, there's a lot more harder science coming out that these facial characteristics actually tend to be quite consistent in certain personality types. Okay. So one of the other things I want to kind of preface is that there is a difference between what we call micro expression training and what we'll be doing tonight. They're very complementary to each other, but what we're going to be doing, we can look at micro expressions as something called active profiling. In other words, when you're looking at micro expressions, they happen in the moment, like a quick, or these quick little eyebrow flashes, or droppings or liftings of the muscles around the mouth or near the eyes. These are signs of people who are actively trying to repress or mask emotions. Okay, very, very useful. Takes a bit more, actually takes a significant amount of training to be able to spot those things and use them on a consistent basis. I call that active profiling. And in our Defense Against the Dark Arts class, our behavioral influence classes like NLP Ultra, which is coming up in, I think, May, we'll be talking about those kinds of body language reading tactics. Tonight is about something we call passive profiling. Now, when I say passive, I don't mean it's nothing's happening, but if you think of going 20 years doing things like this, or like this, or this, right? What you're going to see when we start looking at the face in different zones and different features is the accumulation of a lifetime of emotional responses. And because everything we do follows patterns, and you can begin to understand where certain patterns of emotion manifest on the face. You can learn to look at people's relative sizes of their face and begin to determine things about them that are useful and true enough to be true out in the real world, that you have a distinct advantage in relating to those people. Okay. Are you guys with me so far? If you're with me so far, go ahead and type that in the chat. Cool. I love the thumbs up, guys. Thank you. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Let me just look at how many people we got here. Okay, good, 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 good. All right, so part 1 of tonight's webinar is going to be fundamentals. It's going to be some writing exercises. It's going to be giving you an experience of what we call the emotional motivation checklist. This is something that I want you, as a citizen of Planet David, to really start to embrace. Everything human beings do is in response to a feeling. It's either a feeling they want more of or a feeling they want a whole lot less of. The maps that you're going to see tonight are kind of like the log or the journal entries of those emotions. One of the things you'll start to be able to do if you decide to pursue face reading beyond just a passing interest, you start to be applying this to your coaching business or your therapy business or your managing style or your counseling, sales, things of that nature. One of the things you'll start to be able to do is you'll be able to start to unpack the emotions that people have repressed and have been suppressed, and you'll be able to help them clear those things. And you can start by doing that with yourself. And every morning when I get up, after I've hydrated and stuff like that, I go right to the mirror and I start reading my own face. I started going, okay, I need to work on my digestion, or, oh, okay, I've got some sadness that I haven't fully resolved yet, or there's some disappointment that I need to unpack and attack, things of that nature. So this is a great tool to really check in at any given moment on the state of your physical, mental, and emotional health, if it's to something you decide that you want to go further. Part 2 of our webinar is going to be what we call next steps. Okay, so next steps is, okay, you've learned some fundamentals, you have some things you can take out into the world and use, but I want the whole shebang. I want to know how to level up and go into the professional grade training for that. So part 2 is all about how you can do that. We put some packages and things together that will allow you in your own way to move forward. Part 3 is where things get really cool. Part 3 is where we circle back to the foundations we laid in part 1. And what we do there is we literally customize the content of tonight's webinar to the specific applications that you as a group want to focus in on. Do you want to focus in on lie detection? Do you want to focus in on sexual and romantic compatibility? Do you want to focus in on decision-making strategies? Do you want to focus on how to find self-sabotage, or sadness or grief in the face, things of that nature, right? That's where we can really start to take the pre-planned content and mold it and customize it to the exact applications that you want to have. Now, does that sound like a pretty cool itinerary for tonight? If you like that, if you're okay with that, go ahead and type that in the chat. Excellent. So Courtney says that sounds amazing. Very good. All right. So the question, I guess, becomes, for those of you who don't know who I am, is who is Dr. David Snider, and why should I care? Right. First of all, I am in fact a doctor of acupuncture and oriental medicine. In fact, I'm actually working on a second doctorate in Chinese medical Qigong, which to me is like vibrational energetic psychotherapy, which is what I called face reading for many years. I considered it a vibrational form of psychotherapy. So think of this, what you're learning, as a visual form of energy psychology, because that's really what it is. And if people have questions about energetics and Qigong, I'm happy to answer those things, as long as it's relevant to the webinar, right? So where was I going with this? Okay. I've since 2005, I've had a practice here in Solana Beach, California, where my specialty has been treating physiological illness that is the result of repressed emotion. Like some people, when they learn NLP and hypnosis, they go for weight loss, they go for smoke cessation, things of that nature. Almost from the day I opened my doors, everything I did was off medical referrals. We started with chronic pain, and then we went into terminal and chronic illness, any form of post-traumatic stress disorder that you can imagine, everything from active shooters, child abuse, cult abuse, domestic abuse. I've worked with homicide detectives. I've worked with DEA people. I've worked with other behavioral profilers to clear their own stuff, right? So I had a very busy, very thriving practice, and these skills have been some of the most powerful and useful skills in helping people get the life they want the way that they want it. And that's kind of what I want to make sure that you guys do today. I'm going to share my screen with you a little bit. I'm not big on PowerPoints, but I know, especially for this one, that we need visuals. So let me just share my screen with you really quickly. Some other things you might want to know, if you don't know already, is that for the last 7 years, I've been one of the top two NLP trainers in the world by globalgurus.org. And so I've authored over 15 different products on various forms of human influence, everything from hypnotherapy trainings to behavioral influence to energetic and vibrational healing, things of that nature. What you see here is a letter from globalgurus.org. I'm the creator of a program known as Killer Influence, Secrets of Covert Hypnosis and Killer Influence Defense Against the Dark Arts. And this is a letter saying from Global Gurus that my programs, both of my Killer Influence programs, were named the top NLP training programs in the year since from 2020 to 2023. It's actually an older letter. There you can see the ranking system and things of that nature from some of these different things. This is from 2023. So a lot of the material that you're going to learn tonight is included in my NLP training program, but also when we teach our face reading, we also incorporate a lot of our NLP into our face reading so that we can begin to actually help the people that we're reading. So I just want you to understand a little bit of where we come from. This is a bit of my martial arts background, some of my energy work. And one of the things that people often ask when they see this laundry list is, okay, so what does all this have to do with face reading? Well, I think you can start to intuit a little bit how some of it has to do with face reading. But one of the things that face reading teaches us, or is that all of these disciplines have in common, is the ability to do one thing, and that's recognize patterns of facial and muscular movement, patterns of emotional repression, patterns of decision making, patterns of thought, patterns of speech, patterns of movement. Human beings are just nested patterns and strategies and programs running. And if you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, you can rapidly decipher those patterns and create predictable changes in people, right? And since we're on the subject of creating changes, let's talk about, are you in the right place tonight, right? Is this the right place for you to spend the next couple hours? So here's the deal. Let's play a little game. If you can answer yes to any of the following questions, then you're in the right place. Okay. How many of you, by a show of hands in the chat, would like to be more attractive to members of the opposite sex or even the same sex? How many of you would like to have them find you more charming, attractive, fascinating, and irresistible? What if you could be the most, let me ask you a simple question. What if you could literally be the most fascinating person in the room everywhere you went? Would that be a useful skill to have? Because that's on the agenda for tonight. That's where you're going. If you adopt even one of the charts that I'm going to share with you tonight, people will not leave you alone. Now, I will warn you, this is a double-edged sword, because if you really embody and you internalize the training from tonight, you kind of can't turn it off. So you're going to start to see things in people that some will be like a hell yes, and others will be like a hell no. Right? If you'd like to banish the uncertainty out of your life, if you'd like to start to stop being afraid and stop being and feeling less secure and be more confident in your interactions with people, if that's something you'd like more of, go ahead and type "that's for me" in the chat. Okay. If you're interested in actually earning more money, either through promotions or creating your own business or adding another revenue stream to your existing business, go ahead and type that in the chat. That's on the to-do list too. If you'd like to learn how to protect yourself from the dark artists of the world, the manipulators, the liars, the cheaters, the scoundrels, the narcissists, the Machiavellians, all those other evil persuasion masters out there, this is probably a good place for you. Now, one of the things I will tell you up front is that there's very few traits individually that can signal someone who's high on the narcissistic spectrum, but there are certain trait combinations that can indicate someone who has a higher potential for those kinds of behaviors. And we'll talk about those a little bit in part 3 of the webinar. If you'd like to have people following your lead, thinking and feeling and actually and just naturally doing what you want them to do, go ahead and type "I want that" in the chat, and I'll tell you why that's true. You see, one of the things that happens when you demonstrate knowledge about a person that they didn't give you, they start to become hyper suggestible to you. If you've ever gone to like a psychic, now I'm not saying this is not psychic reading. This is from 25 years of observational science. But one of the things, if you've ever seen people who go to like a faith, a spiritual counselor, or a psychic, or an astrologer, and that person is like hanging on every word that comes out of that reader's mouth. How many people have ever seen that? Maybe you've done it. Maybe you've been with somebody else who was going through that kind of experience. If you have, go ahead and type that in the chat, because I want to explain that to you, because it's really, really important to understand how this works. Okay. One of the things that happens, it's a psychological principle, that anytime you demonstrate knowledge about somebody or somebody's world that they didn't give you, they subconsciously begin to view you as an authority figure in their life, and they become hyper suggestible to you. right? Rob says, ask a single question, folks can't help telling the lecture. Yeah, right. I was at a mentalism show once, and this girl came up out of a girl was actually to volunteer out of the audience, and the mentalist did a couple of tricks, and the next words out of her mouth was, "I love you." Like she just lost it, right? And so one of the things I got to warn you about what you're going to be getting, what you're getting tonight, is that it's real, and the effects that it has when you use it on people are very, very powerful. So I want to encourage you to use this to improve your life and to help other people, but do your best to avoid using it as a weapon, right? Because one of the things you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to look at people and you're going to know how much sadness they're holding on to, how much anger, how much disappointment, how much bitterness, how much grief, how skeptical they are. And if you lose your temper, it's very easy to use that in a less than positive way. And because people become hyper suggestible to you, it's very easy to give them suggestions and have them actually accept it as true. Now, that's a superpower. And I'm not saying, and again, I guess I'm going back to the old expression from Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility, right? So I want to encourage you to use this to improve your life. But as we go through these different things, understand that face reading can do all of that and a whole lot more, right? But be respectful with the technology, because you're going to have the ability to literally just speed read people from just the things we're going to cover tonight. So if you'd like to nail more job interviews, if you'd like to inspire your employees or your children or your spouse to do more stuff and follow your lead and manage them better, go ahead and type that in the chat. If you'd like to attract and surround yourself with lots of new, trustworthy, loyal friends who actually resonate with you, go ahead and type that in the chat, right? I think I've mentioned if you want to be able to put people under your spell, that's actually quite doable, right? All right. So let me ask you a question before we go any further. Is there anything that I did not mention that you want to learn tonight? If there is, type it in the chat. Go ahead and just, if there's something I missed, go ahead and type that in the chat right now. Courtney says, I don't know what to ask yet. I'll hold. Okay, so here's my promise to you. If you stay on until the end of tonight's webinar, I'm going to teach you how to look at a person and understand their personality and their temperament, how they make decisions, and how you can take the facial structures of a person and give them information that is in harmony with how they naturally process and what's important to them. I'm going to teach you how to look at people and track and understand their trauma history. In other words, what happened when they were 5? What happened when they were 7? When were their siblings born? Did they have problems during childbirth? Right? Do they have father or sibling issues? Things of that nature. We can look at people and we can start to gauge romantic and sexual compatibility. What features do people have in common? What features are antagonistic to each other? Right? And how to use those things to effectively influence people, but also perhaps primarily important is to understand them better so you can have better relationships, both within yourself and within your family. Read the stock market. Well, that I'm not sure I can do. If the stock market had a face, maybe I could do something. Let's see what's going on here. Snow Owl is asking, can we learn how to spot personality types? In the sense of the Chinese 5-element system, which is where this original content was derived from, it is possible to look at and type people by water, fire, earth. When I created my programs, I looked for information that was specifically relevant to personality and temperament. And so that's the emphasis of the content tonight. But I have whole other trainings that are devoted specifically to 5-element profiling. The content tonight, you don't need to know anything about Chinese medicine. You don't need to know the difference between Jing, Qi, or Shen, an acupuncture point from an acupuncture meridian, a yin from a yang. You don't need to know any of that. You just need to follow the system, and you'll gain a very, very rapid ability to profile people's decision-making strategies, emotional content, public and private masks or social masks, and you'll be able to use those things to effectively influence them to do what you want them to do. How do I use the techniques on all your videos over the phone? Well, you have to listen, right? So much of our phone work is actually still has a visual component to it. Not directly relevant, Judy, to where we're going tonight, but if I can fit that in, I will. Barbara is saying, I'd like to know how to mend a relationship with a group that I've alienated with stress-caused negativity. Okay. Again, that's probably some content for the end zone of tonight's webinar. Okay. So let's talk about one of the first things that jumped out at me when I started learning to read faces. One of the first things that my teacher was a woman named Lillian Bridges, and she at the time was the world's leading authority on face reading and Chinese medicine. And she was so good at what she did that both the CIA and I think one other three-letter agency from another country was actively trying to recruit her to teach their operatives how to read faces. Now, Lillian was very, very spiritual. She was very heart-centered. She was very big on the integrity and the proper use of her family art. And so in spite of the fact that her father wasn't actually a CIA spy, she chose to not teach those agencies what we're about to go and teach you tonight. But I want you to understand that this is the real deal. And it comes from a very, very old lineage. So I'm very, very honored to be representing that lineage and of the teachers that I've had. So let's talk about a basic question. What if we could look at somebody and instinctively know how they make decisions? What if we could look at somebody and say, okay, that guy, I need to give him a ton of research, a ton of spreadsheets. I need to tell him all the reasons why he's going to or she's going to love it. And then I need to show them the actual applications. That person over there, they need to know that they're going to love this, how it's going to help them. And then I got to give them the data to support it. You understand that? Do you understand what I'm saying? Is I could look at somebody and know, how do I give them the information, or how are they going to move through the world? How do they make their decisions? Would that be useful? Type that in the chat if you think that might be useful. Okay, good. All right. So with your permission, I'd like to start there with what we call decision-making shapes. Now, this goes back to a concept we call understanding shapes of the face, or the three zones of the face. So let me go to my screen share here. Okay, so can you guys see this picture okay? Hold on, let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Can you guys see that okay? Yes or yes, as T. Harv Eker would say. Excellent. Okay, so as you look at this particular diagram, you'll notice that the face is divided up into three zones. And this was one of the very first things that got my attention in face reading, because I'd be honest with you, I'm a bit of a skeptic in a lot of ways. In fact, when I decided to study Oriental medicine, I chose the medical school that had the highest degree of science behind it. It was actually a chiropractic college that actually had just started its own college of Oriental medicine. It was the only acupuncture school with its own cadaver lab. That's how sciencey I wanted to get. And when I went to this seminar, the very first seminar where I learned face reading, I was going in there with this really skeptical, okay, what's the science? What's the, how do I know this is real? And so, when Lillian was talking about Jing and Qi and Shen and Yin and Yang and all these things, I acknowledged that, but it didn't really resonate with me. It wasn't something that I could just grab a hold of and use. So, you'll see here on the chart, it says heaven and human and earth. And that really wasn't really helpful. That's not helpful for us. But what we can say is we can look at this diagram and we can say that people with a zone that's much larger from here to here are very data driven. People who have with the middle of their face is bigger here. These people are very pragmatic. They want to know, what can I do with this? What's this going to do for me? Okay. We'll say they're, we'll call them pragmatists, right? Oops, sorry about that. And let me erase this really quick. As you can tell, it's completely live, no automation here. Erase that. Okay. People with a lower zone, what is going on with this thing now? It's all the energy work I'm doing. It always messes with my software. People with a much larger lower zone, these people tend to be a little bit more feeling driven. They tend to be emotional or instinctive. So people with a very large lower zone tend to go with their gut. So the way that you begin to measure this, and this is how I was taught, is when we look at this, the upper zone, we want to measure from the base of the eyebrow to the top of the head. Now, I'll be honest with you, that's how I was taught, and so that's how I'm teaching you. One of the things that I also found really, really useful, really, really helpful, was to measure from the base of the eyebrow to the hairline. That's a personal thing. My teacher taught me to go from the top of the head to the eyebrow to measure this upper zone. Now, when you see people with large upper zones like this, they're the proverbial eggheads. And I don't mean that in a negative way. If you look at my head, for example, I have a significantly large upper zone, right? And my little radical widow's peak here makes it look even bigger. So I'm very data driven, but I'm also pathologically pragmatic. Data is cool, but if I can't use it, I don't love it, right? And when we look at these zones, one of the things that I want you to start to think of is, what's the order? In other words, as I look at these zones, what's the big one? What's second biggest? What's the smallest, right? Because in NLP, we have what we call modalities: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory. And it became very, very fashionable when people were studying NLP to say, oh, I'm a visual person, or I'm a kinesthetic person, or I'm an auditory person. And it's not true. You're all of them. The difference is you have a preference, right? It's easier for me to get your attention, and this is the big one, get and keep your attention if I start with, what is your favorite or preferred way of relating to the world? But that doesn't mean you don't use the other. Like, if we're going from a visual, if you're a visual person and I start relating to words, I want you to see this. I think you're going to love this, and you're going to be able to see really clearly how it's going to help you create a much brighter, more three-dimensional result for yourself, right? If I'm using those visual words and they're a visual person, I'm going to get and keep their attention easier. The same thing works with these zones. If I'm looking at somebody and I see they have a very high forehead compared to the other three zones, then what that tells me right off the bat is that this person is going to be impressed and be most attentive to data, to information. My good friend Brandon, who is we've kind of sort of become partners over the years, unofficially, and I love Brandon to death. He literally brought NLP power back from the brink of extinction on a technological side many, many years ago. But the thing about Brandon is that he is an uber programmer, right? And he loves data. And so every time I talk to Brandon, he's got, like, he's got this massive forehead and this little tiny chin. And so every time I talk to him about something, he answers me with a spreadsheet, right? Because that's how he relates to the world, through data and numbers and extrapolating on that data. And then he decides how to use it, and then he implements it. And then he looks at the data and says, oh, I love that, right? But does that mean that Brandon's only data driven? Does that mean I can't communicate practical uses to him? Well, no, it doesn't mean that at all. It just means that if I want to get to the point where he's willing to listen or hear the practical applications of something, or entertain those possibilities, he's got to see the data first. In order to get to the pragmatic side, or to him loving the data or loving everything, I need to feed him information. Are you guys with me so far? So it's not, when you see this big high forehead, he's all that works is data. There's a firing sequence to their decision-making process that is indicated. There's a tendency or a predisposition to making decisions in a certain way based on the relative size of these zones. Does that make sense? If you're with me so far, type that in the chat. Okay, so let's go back to the PowerPoint and look at this again. Hold on a second. All right, so we've covered the data zone, the pragmatists of the world. If we look at somebody and we see that they have this really big middle zone here, right? And it's bigger than the rest. This person is not going to be impressed by data. They're not going to be, if you tell them, listen, let me tell you something. We got this amazing new product. You're absolutely going to love it, right? And then you spew the data at them. They're going to look at you and say, so what? How can I use this? What's it going to do for me? I'm not even going to say it here. One of my more colorful colleagues from the attraction and seduction worlds used to say, when people would spew information at him, how is that going to get me more bleep, bleep, bleep? Right? I'll let you fill in the gaps with that. Right? So people with a larger middle zone, they want to know, what's this going to do for me? How's this going to make my life easier? Right? And then depending on what the relative size of the other two zones are, you may have to tell them how much they're going to love it, or get them to tap into their instincts or their guts, or you need to give the data that supports it. But the idea here is, you got to lead with the practical benefits and application. That's what's going to get their attention, right? So, and then finally, of course, we look at the third zone down here. These are people who are very, very, very instinctive. They're gut driven. They're emotional. Now, what's cool about this, remember I talked about handwriting a little bit earlier. One of the things that you'll learn if you studied any form of graphical analysis, if you look at, there are 3 zones in handwriting. The upper zone is what they call the metaphysical zone. And when by metaphysical, they don't mean necessarily spiritual or magical or energetic or woo-woo, although that's part of it. People with a much larger upper zone in their handwriting are very abstract thinkers. They love to think, they love data, they love knowledge, they love information. They're knowledge hoarders. And that correlates directly to what we see in the forehead, and the relativity of the upper zone is that there's this direct correlation between the zones in their handwriting, which is a neurological phenomenon, versus what the physiognomy or the somatic components are saying. Now, what's interesting, and again, you don't have to believe this, but how many of my face reading practitioners do I have on tonight's call? If you're a certified face reader from me or from Lillian or one of her teachers, type me in the chat, because I want the new folks to see so we have Matthews there. I know Heather was on earlier, right? How many of you have ever been doing a reading on somebody and their face changed right in front of you because you unpacked and fixed something? Susan says, right? This is where it gets freaking weird, guys. Remember I said that face reading is a form of Chinese energetic psychotherapy. If you actually start to unpack a feature, that marking will change. So one of the things that happens over time is, based on your environment, based on your interactions, based on the things that happen to you in your life, your face will actually reflect those changes, right? So when we look at this, if you feel like you're too impulsive, maybe you've got a big, strong jaw down here, and that causes you to make some instinctive or impulsive decisions. If you actively change that behavior and start focusing more on data, or focusing more on practical applications on a conscious level, these relative proportions will actually start to change. It's really cool, right? In fact, in the Chinese medical Qigong training that I'm going for now, one of our teachers is doing a class called Functional Alchemy. And there's actually exercises that we give people to change their physiognomy. And as a byproduct of changing that physiognomy, their behavioral components, their behavioral traits, their willpower, their willfulness, their stubbornness, they all change. It's all interconnected, right? So this is where it gets really interesting. So when we look at these relative zones, what we want to do is we want to, okay, what's their dominant one? And where do the other two fall in? So if we go back to the PowerPoint down here, I call this their firing sequence. What's their let me get back to my cursor here. What's their firing sequence? Right? Are they a 1, 2, 3? In other words, do they look at the data and then decide how they're going to use it and then decide they love it? Or are they a 3, 2, 1? Do they decide they love something, think about all the data, and then look at all the applications, right? Or are they something different? Are they somebody who's going to ask, okay, how am I going to use this? What's the data that supports it? And do I love it? How do I feel about it? Right? What I want you guys to start extrapolating from this is the firing sequence. Because if you can extrapolate somebody's firing sequence, then you know exactly how to structure your presentation, how to give people the information that they are predisposed to want to accept and consume first. Okay, Courtney says, haha, I can see my sequence rolling on the floor laughing. Boom, there you are, right? Right? So again, this starts with you, right? If your decision-making strategy is, what you know that, and if it's working for you, keep it. But if you see that these zones line up with how you do things, but it's not working for you, now you know how to change it. You can literally write on a piece of paper a different strategy and consciously practice that strategy. And if you do it long enough, over time, the face will start to change. It's really, it's fascinating. I mean, I've been doing this a long time now, and it's still amazing to watch. Okay. Is this useful? Is this helpful? Is this something you can take out into the world and put to work for yourself? Yes or yes? Cool. All right, excellent. So let's start with another question. How many of you people are fascinated by behavior, or fascinated by how to read people? Is that something that is exciting for you? David is asking, do lesions, pimples, acne, or corresponding areas indicate corresponding problems with that mental portion? It can. Pimples, lesions, things of that nature are almost always more indicative of something that's going on in the physiology of the body, not quite as much the psychology of the body. When I look at people's markings, I see a lot more relating to wrinkles and lines and depressions and scars, moles and things of that nature. Lesions and pimples tend to be a little bit more transient, so they're mostly what we call the chi level, unless they've been around for a long time, and then they're a little bit deeper. Okay, let me go back to, forgive me for a moment, because for some mysterious reason, I can't seem to, my OneNote, for some reason, all of a sudden I lost my other slides. So just give me a moment to find my other slides, because what I want to go next is I want to look at, what if we could look at somebody. Rob Lilly says psychology as it impacts neurology in the body. Yeah. You got to remember something, that what you're learning is derived from Chinese medicine diagnosis, right? Now, there are other, the technical term for face reading in the Chinese system is called mian shang, or face reading. And there are certain schools of face reading that focus on spirituality or focus on divination, fortune telling, things of that nature, right? That is not our emphasis. Our emphasis is on learning how to diagnose the psychology, physiology, energetic health of the body, if that makes any kind of sense. And so there's a lot more testable stuff, right? Because one of the things, like, if, for example, if you're doing the Chinese fortune telling face reading, they'll say, oh, you have a good wealth palace, which means you can earn a lot of money. Well, yeah, that might be true, but how can I use that? What is that? How did they come to that conclusion? Right? Well, one of the things that we discovered is that the size of a person's nose, for example, indicates the strength of their identity and their ego. And so people with very strong, very prominent noses tend to be much more, hey, look at me, let's go do this, right? They're much more, and again, I don't mean this in a bad way, but they tend to be much more egocentric, much more achievement focused, right? Whereas somebody who has a smaller, more subdued nose is somebody who tends to want to kind of follow the group. Now, it doesn't mean they can't be successful or make money or things like that, but you'll find that people with larger noses tend to be much more leaderly. They tend to be people who just get out in front, and if people follow them, great. If people don't follow them, they're going anyway, right? And you'll see this a lot in business people, right? Now, there's different types of big noses, and those are the influence of other types of hormonal pathways and things like that the Chinese would equate to one of the 5 elements, right? And that's what's really cool, is you can actually look at the fleshiness of an area or the boniness of an area and see the influence of certain hormonal pathways in the body that lead to certain types of personality characteristics. That's been the focus of my behind the scenes research into a lot of this. Yeah, Rob, a lot of this has medical application. In fact, all of it has medical applications. We're just not focused on those things right now. Again, small noses tend to be people, again, the more the nose sticks out from the body, the more these people tend to like to stand out in a crowd. Whereas smaller noses are people who are kind of go with the flow. They don't like to necessarily call a lot of attention to themselves. Now, remember, I'm only talking about one feature. If you got a small nose, but a big ass jaw or chin and a big cleft right here, that's a need for attention. So those are things that you have to look at the overall face and to start to extract a profile. And we do that in our face reading certifications and trainings, which if you guys are interested and you want to learn that stuff, I'm happy to show you how to do that. But let's learn things tonight that we can go out and we can put to the test, that we can just prove to ourselves right off the bat, right? What if the face is in equal proportion? That is a great question. People who have equally proportioned faces often have trouble making decisions because they're weighing all these different factors, whereas people who have one that is obviously larger tend to be a little bit more decisive. Barbara says, haha, that's me. Yeah, I'm actually quite a bit that way too. You know, because of my hairline. Hairlines are fascinating, by the way. And again, in the face reading training coming up, if you want to learn about hairline, I can do a lot with a hairline, right? Yeah. Simo says, ha, me too. Very good. Okay. So you guys having fun? Are you learning some cool stuff? Hold on a second. Go. All right. All right. Now I got a little sidetracked, so I got to see if I can find. There we go. Good. Okay. I was worried every now and then my computer just glitches and I lose my data right in front of me. It's just very weird. I know I should put it all in the PowerPoint, but I have an allergy to PowerPoints. So one of the things that we want to think about with people is this idea of social masks. How many people have ever heard the term social masks? Anybody? Okay. So one of my good friends and colleagues in the behavioral sciences world, Chase Hughes, talks a lot about social masks. Interestingly, the Chinese talk about them too. And so one of the things that Chase likes to talk about is for certain applications, you want to play to their masks In other applications, you want to remove them. Okay. So would it be useful if we could look at a person's face and start to identify some of their masks or identify some of the dynamics of their public face and who they are in private? Do you think that would have strategic use or strategic advantage? Yes or no? Okay, cool. So this is where we're going to go next. Now, what I'm going to show you in just a moment is the emotional map of the face. But I'm also going to combine that with something called the private face versus the public face. And ideally, when we look at people's faces, I always like to divide things by zones because I like to be systematic in how I do it. Classical Chinese face reading is done in a very intuitive way. I look at you and I say, okay, what feature jumps out at me? That's what I'm going to talk about first. When I'm training influencers and change agents, I want something, and a lot of them pride themselves on being intuitive. So Julia says, I don't know, I think she's talking to me. I hope not. I hope she is, but not to be creepy, but there's just something about you I like. Thank you. I hope that's directed at me. Otherwise, there's another conversation going on in our chat that we have to examine. Claudia is saying, what about lacking hair in the middle of the head like monks? We can talk about that, but that's going to take us in a slightly different direction. Okay, so I'm going to reserve, Claudia, I'm going to reserve the right to answer that question in the chat. So what we're going to see next is we're going to look at people and we're going to look at how they mark emotions. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to start by talking about public versus private faces, and we're going to start on the emotional map. At about the top of the hour, if it's okay with you, like I said, I promised you at the beginning of tonight's training that I would lay foundations and fundamentals for you, and then I would take you as far as I can in the time that we have, and I would point you in the direction of where to go to level your skills up. Is that still okay with you? Was that our deal? Yes or yes? Okay. So one of the things as a byproduct of tonight's training is I want to make sure that you have a clear path on where to go to level up and become a face reader and use that face reading skill in whatever context you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the facial map. There's a lot more traits here than I can get through before we have to enter phase 2 of the webinar. So I'm going to begin with public and private faces. We're going to start talking and unpacking the emotions of the face. Then we're going to transition into phase 2. We're going to look at programs and ways for you to level your training up. And then at the end of that, we're going to circle back. We're going to finish the map of the face. And then we're going to start to customize the rest of tonight's webinar to the specific applications that you want to use it for, or if you just want to ask me questions about various aspects of face reading that we didn't cover that you're curious about, then I'm happy to answer those to the best of my ability. Does that sound like a plan? Yes or yes? Okay, cool. All right, so let's look at public versus private faces. So when we look at a person's face, can you guys see this okay? We can divide the face into right and left sides. Now, in our previous segment, we divided the face into 3 zones, right? This time, we're going to divide it right down the middle. Okay? The right side of the face is the public face. In other words, if we were talking about social masks, the right side of the face would represent the identity that we want you, the general public, to perceive us as. The left side of the face is who we are when the lights are out, when nobody's around, or when I'm with my most intimate friends and partners, right? And this is where it's really important to understand social masks and public versus private personas, because when you're in a business setting, stripping somebody's social mask will make them more compliant, but will also tend to make them more aggressive and not want to work with you, because nobody likes to feel vulnerable. Nobody likes to feel like they are at a disadvantage. So, and this is especially true when you're dealing with people who are strong on the narcissistic spectrum or the, I don't want to necessarily say the sociopathic spectrum, but people who pride themselves on being strong and image, high status. These people are not people that you're going to want to peel away the masks in a public context. In fact, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to play to it. You're going to want to actually work with and stimulate the needs in the mass that they're representing. So Avery is saying, to be clear, this is looking directly at an individual. So literally, it's like this. In fact, let me clarify this for you. It's a great question, Avery. So here's how we do this. Everybody raise your right hand. Right? If they raise, when the person you're looking at is raising their right hand, that's the public face. If the person you're looking at raises their left hand, that's the private face. Okay? So yes, this is kind of, I am on the slide, it's represented as in mirror image. Okay? When you're out in the field, just remember, if they're raising their right hand, that's their public face. They're raising their left hand, that's their private face. You can take a screenshot of it if you like, because I really, honestly, I can't stop you, but I will be honest with you. Before Lillian passed on, she did request that her students not use her materials in their for sale products and things like that. Now, Lillian passed away in 2021, I think it was. So I don't know how much of an issue copywriting is going to be, but out of respect, again, I can't stop you from screenshotting it. I just ask that if you do decide to do that, please don't share it publicly. I use these as teaching tools, but I try to honor and respect her wishes. So I'm very, very careful. I actually had permission to use her stuff privately. But yeah, there is a book. It's called Face Reading in Chinese Medicine by Lillian Pearl Bridges. So the truth is, I can't stop you from screenshotting it. All I ask is that if you're going to use it, please don't publish it. And if you can, support Lillian and her family and the organization she started by actually buying her book. Okay, so when we're looking at someone's public persona in a business context, we want to play to that. We want to find ways to fluff up or build their self-image. And the reason for that is that people instinctively like people who make them feel good about themselves. This is a very, very important influence principle. So I want you to take a moment and write this down, because this is how we can begin to understand this. People, wait, am I still sharing my screen? No, I'm not. Let me share my screen again. People like people, make them feel good about themselves. And this is the core of all the influence and persuasion that I teach. There's a lot of people out there that are teaching what I would call military applications, which is about making people feel bad, getting them to feel afraid so that they'll behave in predictable ways. Okay, I spend a lot of time clearing up the trauma induced by those kinds of tactics. So I'm not a fan of them, however effective they might be. So this is the core. This is what we consider to be the golden rule of influence in Planet David. Move through the world, making people feel ridiculously good just for having encountered you, and they'll just give you stuff. Okay. So when we're looking at the public persona, the right side of the face, we'll start to be able to extrapolate what their emotional health is like on the public side. When we look at their private face, we'll be able to look at and identify and profile what are the emotional things that they're going to feel, or what's their emotional life when nobody's looking. Now, before you start to perhaps erroneously believe that everything over here is public versus everything over here is private in terms of emotion. That is not the case. So if you actually look at public versus private, this is how we look at it. Okay. So, like I said, the right side of the brain controls the left face. The left side of the brain controls the right face. And so what you'll see is that people will tend to have more emotional markings on their right side of on their left side of their face, because it's governed by the right brain. One of the things that we look for when we assess their emotional or their public and private sides is asymmetry. How symmetrical are the markings on the face? Because when you look at this, if I have more sadness, if I have deeper, longer sadness lines here, but they're not as deep here, then I can extrapolate that when dealing with the public, when dealing with people outside of their private world, these people have had a lot more loss. If the opposite is true, if the lines are deeper here on that private face, but they're very shallow here, I can extrapolate that this person has had a lot more loss in their personal life, in the world that they don't share with the public. And that's useful too. Okay. So I hope I didn't confuse people by sandwiching two different maps. One of the things we want to look at with people when we start exploring these emotions is, where are the lines longer, deeper? The longer and deeper the line, let me write it this way. Look for asymmetry. Longer, deeper equals greater energy or greater intensity. Shorter, shallower equals less severe. Or in some cases, it actually implies a newer occurrence. Okay, so let me just go before we unpack the first 3 or 4 traits. Let me just make sure that I answer any questions with that. Let's see. So Claudia is asking, what if you have an illness that touches one side of the brain, left side, so the right? Yes. So in cases of like stroke and things like that, if you have an injury, an ischemic attack in the left side of the brain, it will tend to manifest in the right face, sometimes in the center of the brain, and vice versa. Okay. Are you guys clear on public versus private? Right side is public, left side is private. When we look at the emotional markings of the face, there are certain strategic patterns that represent certain emotions. They go to the same place. They go to the same places on different people's faces. When we look at the public versus private, we want to look for any asymmetries, and that's a big one. The more symmetrical the face, the more beautiful the face tends to be. Courtney's asking, what about lines on the eyelids? Sometimes one has one fold puffy and the other has more lines. Eyelids are related to criticism. So when you have puffy or droopy eyelids, you're looking at imbalances in person's self-esteem or the amount of criticism that they're receiving, both either externally or internally. Okay, there's a lot of good questions coming up, but again, we're getting into the weeds here. Should we assume the left side of her face? Okay, let me say this once again. If you're looking at a person, imagine them raising their right hand. And just do this will make it very, very simple for you. Just imagine them raising their right hand. That's their public face. Imagine the person raising their left hand. That's their private face. Now, the emotions that you're seeing on the chart that we're about to go through have nothing to do with right side of the face or left side of the face. 99% of all the facial characteristics and markings we're about to go through can be on both sides. They can be on just one side. They can be on the right side or the left side. Why? Because it's not about the emotion. Those emotions are universal emotions. But right side or left side of the face tells us where they're strongest. Are you guys with me so far? Hold on a second. Courtney says understood. Okay, so Claudia is saying, doesn't that, now, one of the things you need to understand is that a lot of times when people have strokes or ischemic attacks, that facial change will change their behavior and personality characteristics. It's a feedback loop. So a lot of times when there's facial paralysis, Bell's palsy, things of that nature, it'll actually impact their behaviors and their emotional health. It won't just be a facial thing. Okay, Parkinson's, yeah, all the time. Parkinson's, MS, stroke, all of these things, Bell's palsy, all of these things will actually change a person's behaviors. They'll change a person's personality and temperament. Now, the only thing we can't really predict is what's that degree, right? Because that's going to be mediated by their habitual patterns, their trauma history, how they manage their emotions, their environment, the context. These are all things that can dramatically impact the face that somebody's presenting. Okay, but it's a good question, and that's why I recommend that you test everything that I'm sharing with you. I don't want you to just believe it because David said so. I want you to go out and I want you to talk to people and I want you to read their faces and get feedback and prove to yourself how valid this particular material is, right? So let's look at a couple of emotions, and then if it's okay with you, I'm going to go into phase 2, just so we're on schedule, and we're going to circle back. We'll finish the map of the face, and then we'll talk about other things. Is that fair? Okay. So one of the first ones that I deal with all the time, especially where face reading is concerned, is called skepticism. Now, skepticism can be seen as a vertical line that starts about the mid-level of the eyebrow and migrates towards the outer side of the body, towards the edge of the eyebrow. So when you see this marking, you got to be very careful how you word these things, because a lot of times people have a knee-jerk response to being labeled. So one of the things you rather than look at them and say, oh, you're a very skeptical person. Well, depending on the sensitivity and the reactance level of the person, that might not be, that could actually provoke a reactant response like, no, I'm not, right? So the way you present these things, it's always important to have rapport and to describe the behavior many times in terms of other people. This is something strategically I found that when you see a marking on a face that maybe has a negative connotation, it's always a good idea to say, you have a really interesting marking here. And what I've noticed is that people with this marking sometimes exhibit this type of behavior or this type of experience and often feel this way. So for example, if I'm dealing with somebody who's, I'm seeing a strong skepticism line, rather than go up to them and say, you're a skeptical motherfucker, right? Probably not the most rapport building way to express that. But what you could say is, I notice you have a really fascinating mark right above your eyebrow here. And what I've noticed from my studies in face reading psychology and Chinese medicine is that there are certain behavioral characteristics that this marking indicates. And this marking indicates somebody who doesn't just take everything at face value. They take everything with a grain of salt. They want to see a little bit of proof. They're not necessarily anti or disbelieving, but they want to see that they want to see a little bit of proof before they'll accept something wholeheartedly. Would that be true for you? Right? And so when you describe things that way, it triggers a transderivational search in them, and they're more willing to acknowledge that trait. One of the things I loved about working with Lillian was that she always tried to frame every trait in a positive way first. And the reason that she did that was because in the face reading that she was taught, which is from the very classical family style, family tradition, Mian Xiang as a practice tends to be a little bit harsh. It's a lot of it when face readers talk to you from other schools, they tend to point out all the negative shit that goes on in the face. And so Lillian, in her world, she always tried to start with something that was positive, to let people know that there was no such thing as a bad facial marking, but that there were two sides of it. And so she wanted to talk to people in a way that she could create change, that would create openness and the ability to discuss the issues so they could clear it. Okay. And so that's how she would, and that's how I encourage you to do these things, right? So skepticism can be seen as a line that travels across. Now, the longer and deeper the line, the more intense the trait. And that's the thing that you need to understand. The more embedded the trait is, the older it is, and the more energy it tends to have. So Avery is asking, how about superficial lines in the, okay, we're not there yet, guys. Okay, we're going to go, when we look at the facial map, okay, hold on. When we look at the facial map, we're gonna take a clockwise direction. We're gonna go all the way around like a big clock face, and then we're gonna go down the center. Okay, that's my intention. Sometimes I'll jump to the center just because we're there, but that's where we're going. Is this useful so far? Yes or yes? Copy that. All right, so I've got some kind of weird thing going on in my top chat here. Oh, I see what's happening. Okay, good. All right. So the next one I want to talk about is, and these are some of the ones that I think we all kind of are zeroed in on. We're going to talk about joy, sadness, sorrow, and grief. Now, when we start looking at these kinds of emotions, the first thing we want to look at is the outer canthus of the eye. When you have a small line that travels from the outer canthus and goes up, this is a joy line. This is somebody who's experienced a lot of happiness, a lot of nice feelings. Brad says, what if I have a cannon instead of a line? Then it's a longer, deeper, older trait. Okay. Now, you'll notice when we look at sadness, there's like 3 degrees of sadness here. So a short line from the outer canthus that goes down indicates someone who's experienced a significant amount of sadness in their life. This could be the loss of a friend, it could be the job opportunity, it could be, big tax return. They've experienced some kind of loss. The longer the line gets and the deeper it goes, the more the person is transitioning from grief, which is kind of an acute loss, to sorrow. This is where things are starting to get a little bit more, they're moving from pain into suffering, if that makes any kind of sense. And what's happening is, this is usually the accumulation of a bunch of losses. If that continues, the person is going to move into a state of what I call terminal or chronic grief. Okay. And that can be seen by a line that really goes down through the face. Now, there's another kind of loss that people experience. It's called a lost love. This line starts at the inner canthus, the inner corner of the eye, and translates down. Now, what's interesting about lost love lines is that they often indicate people who have not necessarily lost a person, but they've lost something that is a part of their identity. They've lost something that they've identified with as being instrumental to their joy. So the example that I get many times, or give many times, is people with this line. Often when they were young, there was some activity or some person that they just loved. Every time they thought about going out and doing it, they would just light up like a Christmas tree, right? So the example I often give is like, maybe when you were a little kid, you loved horses. The first time you laid eyes on a horse, there was a part of your spirit that just opened up and bloomed because there was a special place in your heart for anything to do with horses. And for the next 5, 6, 7 years, every weekend, every time it changed good, you were out doing things with horses. You decorated your room with horses. Your family actually managed, because you were so focused on it, maybe they bought you a horse. And then maybe a few years later, something happens. There's a financial loss, and now you can't support the horse anymore. The family has to sell the horse. The horse dies. You meet somebody who, for whatever reason, you have to make a choice between loving this person and being with this person or keeping the horse. And out of love for this other person, you give up horses. What will happen is when you lose something that is a part of your true self, your true identity, your Ming, as they say in the Chinese, you will actually develop a line that will start at the inner canthi and travel down. Now, I've noticed that with this particular marking, that it tends to happen in two ways. The first one is exactly what you see here. Hold on a second. Let me just get these lines out of the way. Where the line starts at the inner canthus and it just travels down like a waterfall. But sometimes that line will actually start here. It'll move across to the grief or sadness area, and then it'll trickle down. And this is again, anytime you see these kinds of lines, in my opinion, what you're seeing is mourning, specifically repressed mourning. In other words, these people never stopped grieving for that loss. In fact, what they tried to do many times is they put an arbitrary cap on how long they were allowed to mourn something. And when they exceeded that time limit, they decided to do things to distract themselves or repress that emotion. And that's what's actually causing these lines. These lines are lines of emotional repression, not expression. And that's the important thing I want you to understand. When you see these lines in people, this is the shit they're not dealing with. This is the stuff that they're refusing to unpack and attack, right? And so if you're a therapist, a coach, a counselor, a psychotherapist, a medical person, you will, when you see these lines, it's indicative of a pathology that is based on repression. Now, what do I mean by that? Many times people with lung problems, COPD, emphysema, asthma, allergies will have this line. Why? Because that line, the lung area, the place you diagnose the lungs on the face is right here. Let me show you this really quick. If you look at, here we go, the lungs, right? Your little, oops, sorry. Your lost love line goes right down here. Your sadness line is here. Your sorrow line is here. Your grief line is here. They're all passing through the lung area. So what will happen many times, if you're a medical practitioner and you've got someone with lung stuff, if you have any skill at talk therapy, things of that nature, ask if they've had any did they lose people, right? If you're an acupuncturist or you're a hypnotist, and you start unpacking their grief, many times they'll start coughing. Their breathing patterns will change. They'll have this kind of cadence of, right? You'll hear them choke because of expression. These are all repressed emotions. It's a feedback loop. So I want to point that out, because a lot of you, like I said, for many years, 99% of my clients were medical referrals. I was dealing with terminal and chronic illness, and I saw these markings over and over and over again. And so there's a correlation to those things. Okay. Barbara says, damn, I've got one of those starting. I have to confront it. Here's the secret to this. Here's the secret to this. If you've got one of these lines, part of your Ming, your spiritual mission in this life is to reclaim that and reintegrate it into your current way of living. That's how you fix it. You clear the grief or the loss, and or you reintegrate that activity back into your life in some way. Okay, does that make sense? Yes or yes? Cool. All right. So now, with your permission, I'd like to share some things with you that, has this been helpful? Okay. So I'm curious about something. When you guys signed up for tonight's webinar, right, there was something that you wanted to learn, something you wanted to be able to take away from this. True or not true? Something you wanted to get as a byproduct of tonight's training. Okay. I want you to stop for a moment, and I want you to imagine what it'd be like to have that. Take a moment. Usually I have you write this stuff down, but we're kind of pressed for time. So we'll just do this together as an exercise. I want you to just write down in your mind, think about what your life is going to be like once you have it. And what's important about that to you? What's that going to do for you? And I want you to pay very close attention to the exact words your mind chooses to express that desire, to express that need. And when you have that, just type done in the chat. Okay, to understand the boat. Okay, done. Excellent. Now, imagine that you've got that part. What's important about having that? What will that allow you to do? So we're going to go 3 levels deep. And the reason that we're doing this is called the emotional motivation, emotional bonding checklist. This is something that I want you to begin to really embrace. We've done this, and we do this in just about every webinar, but it's usually a written process. I want you to think about what's important about that. What's it going to do for you? Pick up and go. Okay. And if you had that, so you've got something from tonight's webinar, you know what's important about that, whatever that is. So as you stop for a moment, you imagine what that would be like to have that thing. What's important about that? And as you think about what's important about that, if you could understand people better, to pick up and go, to do whatever the thing is that you truly want and desire from tonight's webinar as a byproduct of tonight's training, ultimately, what's that going to do for you? What are you going to be able to be, do, or have as a byproduct of the training tonight that you couldn't have done without it? Go ahead and take a moment. Imagine what it's like to have all of those things and what next steps you need to go there. And type in the chat what that would be for me. Explore the sea and countries encountered. That's interesting. Finally understand the Barden books. Okay. Those are some really interesting. Okay. So that being said, how many of you are ready to take this to another level? How many of you are ready to level up your skills and get that final result for yourself? Is that something you guys are ready to do? Yes or yes? Perfect. Matthew says, have the most intimate connection with others and truly confirm when yes, that's a very good one. By the way, whatever reasons you come up with, that's perfectly okay. So with your permission, I'd like to share something with you. This is a program I've put together to help you learn how to do what I do from the comfort of your own home. Remember that this is all about you. It's about you getting the life that you want, the way that you want. So without further ado, I'd like to share with you our next program. This is something that will take your life and your skills to the next level. This is our Face Reading for Fun and Profit, How to Read Anyone Instantly home study course. This is one of the most powerful programs or sets of programs I've put together designed to take you from zero to hero with reading faces and understanding people. It's all about helping you take your life to the next level, to help you understand yourself better, to read people instantly, to predict their behavior so that you can help more people have more confidence in your social and professional interactions. It's going to allow you to become more socially and professionally powerful, both at home, at the office, out in the world, as a therapist, as a counselor, as a coach, as a salesperson, as a copywriter. This will help you to do these things, right? It's going to help you win the game of life because that's what reading faces is all about. It's about understanding how to tap into the needs and desires of people so that you can satisfy those needs. And in the process of that, as a byproduct of that, they're going to give you everything that you want. And anywhere you go, any place you go, they're going to instantly find you more charming, charismatic, and irresistible. In fact, you're going to probably discover that you're not going to want to tell people that you're a face reader after a while, because they won't leave you alone. But it's a nice choice to have, right? So here's what we put together for you. Now, this offer is good until October 30th, 2023 at 11:59 p.m. tonight. That's today, okay? And this is Secrets of Face Reading Home Study course is all about, this is our first level to this is a $1,997 value. This is our Face Reading for Fun and Profit Home Study course level 1. It's going to teach you how to assess people's personality and temperament. It won't give you a reading on their character, because a person can be assertive, but they could be malevolent. They could be assertive and be very benevolent. So it's not going to give you their alignment, to use a D&D term. It's going to give you their personality and temperament. So you can tell, okay, is this person someone who responds well to authority, or is this person someone who needs more authority? Is this someone who it works better in an unsupervised capacity, or is this somebody who wants to be and functions well as part of a group? Right? Are these extroverted people or introverted people? Are these people who are very detail oriented versus people who are more big picture, right? It's about learning how to look at people and say, okay, is this person, just like we talked about earlier, is this someone who needs a lot of data? Because there are certain types of people based on their physiognomy, based on the shape of their forehead, that are going to do really, really well in data crunching capacities. If you're an accountant, if you're an analyst, an auditor, a research person, these are people who you're going to see these big foreheads in these predominantly migrate to these kinds of activities. If you run teams or manage people, you can look at their physiognomy, and again, by the amount of traits that people have in common, you can figure out in a very, very quick way, what is how harmonious, what's the harmony potential of that group? Are they going to get along? Are they going to have management styles or interact decision-making styles that are complementary versus antagonistic to each other? All right. This is one of the primary things that face reading was used for centuries, 2,500 years in China, in business, legal professions, as well as medicine and things of that nature. So this is something that for matchmaking, we're going to teach you how to read and unpack people's emotional traumas. You're going to be able to look at a person's emotional history. It's literally written on their face. And then based on that, you'll be able to make decisions as to how to interact with those people, things to emphasize, things to move away from. If you're a therapist, this is one of the most invaluable tools you'll ever get to healing people, whether it's physically or emotionally. Okay. It'll give you a snapshot into their potential managerial styles and how they interact with authority, how they interact. Are these people better as a solopreneur? Are they better as a part of a corporate structure? Believe me, those are big, big differences, and they're very, very obvious in people's facial structures. What's their sexual and romantic compatibility? How do these people get along, right? Will these two people make a good pair? Will they be at each other's throats? Will they be complementary or antagonistic to each other? We're going to show you how that works and how you can begin to start picking better mates, picking better partners, or at the very least, learn how to manage the partners you have better. Okay, if you understand your tendencies and the way your partner's tendencies are, you can make the changes necessary to make that relationship more harmonious and more fulfilling for both of you. Okay, it's going to give you can look at somebody and get a pretty good snapshot as how they tend to relate to money and their resources. How do they manage those things, right? The question is, can you overcome what your face says? 1,000%. The thing you need to understand about the face is that none of it is set in stone. The beautiful thing about face reading is it tells you where you're at right now. And as you make the changes, the face will change too. It's fantastic as a transformational tool for yourself. And like I said, as a therapist, as a healer, this has been an invaluable skill set for me. Okay. In fact, one of the things I have to constantly manage is my kids are always asking me to read their faces. And I always have to say, when you're older, I'll read your face, because it can make people so hyper suggestible to you. Lillian had a very hard rule that you don't read people's faces if they're under the age of 18, because those suggestions and those readings that you make can actually become a program, and you could actually wind up putting a hex on them. So you got to be careful. If you want to understand yourself better, this is probably one of the fastest, ways to check in on a day-to-day basis and look at the overall health of your physical body, your emotional body, your mental body, so you can buffer it accordingly. Predicting human behavior becomes very, very simple once you understand people's natural predispositions. These are all things that we're going to teach you how to do. In fact, by the end of this course, you'll be able to look at a person and create a profile of them in under 90 seconds. You'll be able to literally go from a hairline to nose line and know things about them that their best friends simply don't know. If you would like to, like I said before, be the most fascinating, charismatic, and influential person in a room, this is one of the fastest ways to take that even further. If you're someone who is tired of being played, are there certain characteristics that people who are more manipulative share? The answer is yes. In fact, we'll talk about a couple of them in part 3 of the webinar. So total value on this package is a $1,997 value, but as you can guess, we put a package together for you because we're not going to just throw this at you and say, okay, you're ready to go. There's other things we want you to have that are going to round out and make your training the most comprehensive, soup to nuts, valuable training you can do from home. And so if you grab your course tonight, if you click the link that we share with you very, very shortly, you're also going to get these super special bonuses that I think are just the cat's meow. In fact, one of the ones we're going to share with you first and foremost is my flagship Killer Influence program. You heard me talk about this at the beginning of the webinar. This is our Defense Against the Dark Arts Killer Influence curriculum. This was named the #1 NLP training program in the world for the last 2 years. And the reason we're including this is because it integrates so perfectly with the face reading and profiling aspects of the content of tonight. Defense Against the Dark Arts is all about learning how to speed read and profile people's behaviors, about how to detect lies, how to flag narcissists, how to flag sociopaths, Machiavellians, people who are going to be abusers, con artists, human traffickers, things of that nature. It's going to teach you the 21 different conversational and behavioral red flags that these people exhibit. It's going to teach you how to turn the tables on them and profile them before they get their claws into your mind, your heart, or your checkbook, so that you can become more powerful. It's going to teach you how to spot micro expressions, how to spot when people are concealing information, how when people are dissembling or deflecting, how when they're concealing secret grief or have a tendency to lie. We'll talk about the 15 most important lie detection data points to look for when interacting with people. We're going to talk about what we call hoovering, which is if you've ever been in a relationship with these manipulative persuasion predators, and you manage to extricate yourself out of it. There's like 6 or 7 different strategies and tactics that these people use to try and suck you back into that unhealthy relationship with them. We're going to teach you what they are, what they look like, how to deal with them, and how to avoid them, so that you never get sucked in and get stuck in these one-down codependent relationships, these abusive relationships ever again. We're also going to teach you the universal persuasion protocol. Not only are we going to teach you how to turn the table on the bad guy predators of the world, we're going to show you how to move through the world influencing people in an ethical, honest way that causes people to like, love, and trust you in the shortest amount of time possible. And you will never, ever have to lie, cheat, steal, or negatively manipulate or coerce another human being for as long as you live. And the byproduct of that training is that when people try to use these covert hypnotic influence techniques on you, you will be able to detect them instantly and neutralize them in whatever way is appropriate for you. We call it Defense Against the Dark Arts because we're going to teach you both sides of the influence continuum. We're going to teach you how these negative persuasion predators operate, how they select their victims, the 20 different, I think it's like 13 to 15 different qualities that people who are persuasion predators are sorting for, so you can actually spot these things in yourself and take yourself off the menu. We're going to teach you the 7 most powerful hypnotic language patterns that exist, so that you can instantly cause people to believe what you say and do what you want. You can direct their focus of attention. You can cause anything you want to mean anything you want in the minds of your subject or your attacker. You can make anything you want You can create people's internal pictures to be exactly what you describe with absolutely zero chance of mistranslation. So think about this for a moment. What if you had the ability to not only detect these bad guys out there, what if you had the ability to actually install things in them that would keep them from ever harming anyone ever again? Would that be a useful skill to have? Because those language patterns that I'm talking about will allow you to do that. What if you had the ability to detect when anybody was exerting an unhealthy level of influence on you? Would it be useful to be able to stop that and to extricate yourself? What if there was a conversational framework that just going through this conversational framework, as the person got deeper and deeper and deeper into that conversation with you, they just wanted to tell you more and more true things about themselves. And the deeper they got into that conversation, the harder and harder it got for them to lie to you. That's part of this training as well. It's called the 3 Magic Questions protocol, and the intimacy intensive interview that follows it is a way to draw people deeper and deeper into rapport. And as they get deeper and deeper into that rapport, they volunteer more and more information about you, and it becomes harder and harder to lie. So included in this program, it's a $1,997 value. This is what you get: how to think and act like a master influencer. It's a $297 value. How to control your own psycho-emotional state so no one else can do it without your permission. Power rapport skills for connecting with anyone, anytime, anywhere. And how to detect when those skills are being used against you. Irresistible hypnotic language patterns. I just talked about those. It's a $297 value. How to manage and influence the emotional states of others so that they move through the world feeling dramatically connected and drawn and bordering on love with you. That's a very powerful skill set to have. How to emotionally bond people to yourself, your product, your service, and have them salivating to do what you want them to do for their own selfish reasons. How to hack and understand other people's internal behavioral code. You saw a little bit of that with the decision-making strategies from the face reading, but there's other ways that you can do it. Things that little clues and tells in their language that give indicators of the structure of a person's thoughts that you can integrate into how you speak, that makes them want to do what you want them to do quicker, easier, and more enthusiastically than if you tried it any other way. We're going to teach you how to emotionally bond anyone's deepest desires to the things you offer, so that in the simple act of them selfishly pursuing the things they want, they're automatically, eagerly volunteering to do what you want them to do. What could you do with powers like this? Right? This is all in Defense Against the Dark Arts, but there's more. Okay. We're also going to teach you like I said before, we're going to teach you the fundamentals of lie detection on demand, how to spot sociopaths, narcissists, and other evil a-holes before they have a chance to destroy your life, destroy your family, or do vile things to your loved ones, right? Speed profiling secrets for preventing predators from getting their hooks into you in the first place, right? Predatory psychology, how do these people, and how to turn the table on narcissists and other persuasion predators. Hypnotic reframing techniques for winning arguments and keeping yourself from being gaslighted. This is a big one. One of the big things that these narcissistic persuasion predators like to do is they like to make you, the moment you call them on their BS, they try to reframe it and make you feel like you're crazy or you completely misunderstood. We're going to show you how to turn the tables on them trying to turn the tables on you. Again, we talked about the 21 conversational red flags that narcissists and sociopaths and other persuasion predators will use to avoid taking responsibility for their actions, how to instantly spot microexpressions and subtle changes. And of course, we're also going to include the Killer Influence Mind Control Manual or Manifesto, which has chapters and appendixes on social hypnotic operators. These are hypnotic programs that society has installed in you, things like scarcity and reciprocity, things that cause you to behave in predictable manner that the government and other three-letter agencies and media outlets are using all the time to get you to behave in predictable ways. Once you understand them, now you have a choice. You can detect them and you can choose how you want to respond to that kind of influence. Remember, without awareness, there is no choice. And if you don't, and just because you're not aware of it, doesn't mean it isn't pushing your buttons. We're going to take your awareness to a whole new level, right? You will never see people the same way again, and you'll be able to respond appropriately in any situation or circumstance to get what you want the way that you want it. Total value on this package on this particular program by itself is $1,997 value. You combine that with the face reading, and it's a total value of $3,994. But we're still not done. We fleshed out this package. We designed it to be a one-stop shop so that you can do all this from the comfort of your own home and get the biggest bang for your buck. So we're also going to include the Identity by Design Hypnotherapy Home Study course. This is a course that will teach you how to rebuild yourself from the inside out, how to systematically remove the hidden negativity and blocks to success you didn't even know you had, how to hypnotize other human beings anytime, anywhere, under any situation or circumstance, for any reason, to remove blocks and limiting beliefs, how to clear up issues that just don't seem to go away. If you've ever had a problem and you've gone to somebody and they do an intervention and it goes away, and on the way home or shortly later, the feelings come back, or in a similar situation, it comes back again. We're going to show you how and why that happens, and some of the most powerful, foolproof techniques to making sure that that goes away and does not come back. Okay. We're going to teach you how to change that crappy voice inside your head. You know, the voice inside your head that just said what voice? You know, most of us have one or have had a voice in our head. If you've been through Identity by Design, you probably don't have it anymore. That tells us all the reasons why we're lazy, we're stupid, we don't deserve this, we shouldn't do that, don't do that, it's bad for you. What if we could change that voice into one that's constantly inspiring us, motivating us, telling us why we deserve to have things, how we can get a better result, that inspires us and motivates us and tells us all the reasons why we can do things instead of all the reasons why we can't. That's the next level of the Identity by Design silo. What if we could take that? What if we can install specific emotional states that move us forward, states that empower us, states like relentless determination, states of victory, states of being a winner, states of being playful and curious, things that move us forward and allow us to experience the world through the eyes of pleasure and joy and possibility. That changes your consciousness, it changes your reality, and it changes what your nervous system pays attention to. Now, what if we could take all the things I've just described and install those at your DNA level, like a hypnotic template, a program that's running all the time, so that everything you experience is filtered through those lenses, through those processes? What would happen to your life? What would happen to your sense of your ability to achieve and move forward if that was always in play? What if you had the ability to custom design your identity and personality to be who you want to be instead of who society, family, education, life experience programmed you to be? That's what Identity by Design is all about. And the best part is you start by doing this to yourself. But what if you could actually do this for other people? What if you could actually get paid to do this for other people in conjunction with your face reading? So if you're a coach, a therapist, a counselor, a mentor, a coach, a parent, you can take these skills and teach them to your loved ones, teach them to your clients. FYI, the Identity by Design system is actually used by Olympic athletes in swimming and marksmanship. One of my students just recently worked with a marksman. She won 7 gold medals using the Identity by Design process as part of her mental training regimen. One of my students, Joni Johnson-Nady, is actually the team hypnotist for the U.S. Olympic swimming team. They exclusively use my techniques to help people program themselves for peak performance. So I've been using this clinically for the last 12, 15, 20 years. And it's just amazing. Now you can have it, you use it in conjunction with your face reading, and you have the ability to really, really change people's lives, starting with your own, and then adding new revenue streams and helping the people you care about. Yes, you can help your friends, you can help your children, you can help your significant other if they want the help, right? And because you know face reading, you know the exact way to present this stuff to them so that they're more likely to want the help. It's a $1,497 value. We're going to give this to you absolutely free. Total combined value is $5,491. We're not going to stop there. Remember that today's class is really about understanding human behavior. So we're going to include another really cool course. I did this many years ago. This is called People Reading for Fun and Profit. And this is about looking at other things besides the face. How are they dressed? What are they doing with their hands? What are they doing with their torso? What are they doing with their feet? You're going to learn how to understand body language and expressions, and starting with and understanding the body language of attraction. This is one of the most important things you can understand. I've been teaching this for many years, but in case you haven't heard it before, one of the things I discovered many, many years ago is that the body language of attraction is the archetype for all other types of social interaction between two or more people. So if you understand in depth what body attraction, body language looks like, you can very, very effectively gauge what stage of a relationship people are in a business context, a therapeutic intervention, a networking function, because they're variations on a theme. So we make it very, very simple, very, very easy. You'll learn how to detect lies and other deceptive behaviors, how to influence people without words, which is really, really cool. How to project through your body language, charm, confidence, charisma on command. There are certain body language techniques that we teach in Defense Against the Dark Arts, but we also teach them here, that will literally cause you to emanate a charismatic aura of authenticity and sincerity that people will just warm up to and want to spend more time in your bubble. Okay, you'll learn how to, ladies, you'll learn how to understand men better. Women, you'll learn how to understand men better. You'll learn how to dress for success. There are 6 different levels of dress that equate to certain levels of social status. And each of those levels of social status will amplify your influence or weaken your influence depending on your level of dress versus the people around you. Okay. We'll teach you how to eliminate behaviors that weaken your influence. Simple things that you may not even thought of, like touching your face in an interaction. Statistically shows that it makes people less influential, less charismatic because they seem less certain, right? Touching your face at certain points can also indicate the potential for just being deceptive, right? So these are things like approaching someone straight on can often create a antagonistic energy with somebody as opposed to standing at a 45-degree angle. So these are all things that you can begin to manage in your environment that not only allow you to read and understand people's psychological positioning, but can allow you an advantage in positioning yourself in a nonverbal way to be more influential in that person. So these are all part of the People Reading for Fun and Profit body language secrets training. You'll be able to close more deals. You'll be able to get more dates. You'll be able to create the kind of interactions that you truly want to have with a lot less variability, with a lot less possibility of things going south for you. Okay. Total combined value is $6,998. This is a $1,497 value. We're going to include this as part of your package absolutely free. So let's just review really quick what we've got. Okay, we're going to give you the Secrets of Face Reading Home Study Program. It's a $1,997 value. And because we created this course during COVID, everything in the first course you can see above a mask. So literally, even if they're wearing a mask or a bandana over their face, you can still read them, right? We're going to give you the Speed Profiling Defense Against the Dark Arts Home Study course. It's a $1,997 value. Remember that the Defense Against the Dark Arts program was voted by my peers as the #1 NLP training program in the world. It's 40% profiling, 60% influence, and you combine them to become unstoppable. We're going to give this to you absolutely free because I want you to have the tools to actually use the face reading, okay? To leverage your face reading skills in a positive way, okay? We're going to include the Identity by Design Hypnotherapy Home Study course. This, again, is going to take you from zero to hero, hypnotically speaking. It's going to give you the ability to redesign your own mind and body, reprogram your subconscious mind. And if you want to, you can use it. You can get paid to do this. You can actually incorporate these techniques into your coaching business, into your sales trainings. You know, if you lead teams, you can help people get over shit and amplify their productivity. So there's lots of different ways that you can leverage this Identity by Design training to increase the amount of revenue that you generate every month. Okay. We're going to give this to you absolutely free, right? We're going to include the People Reading for Fun and Profit 2-day intensive. This is, again, the other things that you can focus on in terms of reading people through their body language, reading people through their clothing, their spatial orientations, things of that nature. and begin to create powerful nonverbal influence scenarios that make people just bond to you and respond to you more powerfully and positively. We're going to give this to you absolutely free. Total value, total combined value is $6,988 if you were to go to the website today and actually try to buy these things individually. The thing is, some of these you can't actually buy on the website, okay? But for today, I want to give you the best deal humanly possible. So obviously, I'm not necessarily going to make you pay $6,998 right? You're not even going to have. We're not even going to drop it 1,000 and make you pay $5,987, right? Or 3,497. We're not even going to charge you 2,400. I mean, you can see that the value is going up as the price is going down, right? Think about all the things that you can do with just a half or a tenth of the things I've talked about, right? We're not even going to charge you $1,497 for this program. For those of you who want to take your life to the next level, and some of you may be going, well, I don't know if I can afford it. I don't know if it'll work. How do I know it'll work? Those are the voices in your head that are trying to keep you the same, right? Remember, you came here to get change. So I'm teaching you the fastest, most direct route to get what you want in the shortest amount of time possible. So for those of you who know you're ready for a change, who are ready to have more power and influence in your life, you can get it all for just one low installment of $997, right? Or if you need help, you can break that into 3 easy installments of $397 each. All you need to do to get yours is go to www.nlppower.com. Click this link right now, /face. Click the link, nlppower.com/face, F-A-C-E. Click the link and reserve your package, because we've got some really cool things ahead of you. When you come to live trainings, is that much more powerful? 100%. 100%. One of the reasons that I created this program was because of logistics and the amount of immersion that's necessary. I decided if people can't get to a live training, this is going to be the next best thing. But I'm glad you brought that up, because for those of you who are really ready to go, I have some really cool extra bonuses if you stick with me to the end of the webinar. So here's the deal. Sometimes we have these little voices in our head that want us to stay the same, that try to hold us back, right? In my last webinar, I talked about there's 2 things you need to be successful in life. You need an identity that supports the person you want to become, and you need to take action. And there's 2 reasons people don't take action. They don't want to, or they don't want to. But those, basically, what does that mean? I don't understand how this is important to me, how it'll change my life, or I'm afraid. And a lot of times when those voices in your head that come up, well, this takes too long, or I'm too old, or it costs too much money, or it'll take too long, or how do I know it'll work? All these things is the same program running in your head, trying to keep you the same. Remember that your autonomic nervous system isn't concerned about your long-term growth and health beyond the ability to stay alive and to move your genes forward. So if you want something better, you have to choose to do something different. And so a lot of times what happens is when we're faced with opportunities to do something better, to do something different, these little tapes will play in our head. Well, I don't know if this is worth it. I don't know if it's like, I don't know if I want to go, I'm 47 years old. I'm too old to go join a doctorate program. Well, really, you're going to be, it's a 4-year doctorate program. You're still going to be 52 years or 42 years, 51 years old. You can be 51 years old without a doctorate, or you can be 51 years old with a doctorate, right? The idea is these voices are designed to keep you the same, because your unconscious mind, your autonomic nervous system, sorts for what's familiar, not for what's going to make you better. So I want you to be aware that when these voices pop up in your head, that it's your autonomic nervous system trying to keep you stuck. One of my mentors, Lisa Sasevich, used to say, well, if you're not going to do this, what are you going to do instead? Right? Are you going to stay the same? Or do you see a path forward? Now, why do I bring those things up? Because I know that's what's going through your head right now, right? That's your autonomic nervous system trying to keep you the same. But let me just help you a little bit. Understand that you have absolutely nothing to lose by joining this program right now. After you click that link, we're going to give you 60 days to use these programs. If after 60 days, you're not on the fast track to understanding people better, reading their personalities and instantly being able to predict and influence their behavior. If you're not on the fast track to becoming more attractive, more charismatic, more successful, if you're not finding better friends, if you're not able to use the ability to read faces and the influence techniques contained in the program to make your relationships happier and better, that allow you to feel more confident, secure, and powerful. If you're not on the fast track to winning more social encounters and being the star in every situation where you use these skills, we're going to refund your money. We're going to give you your money back. All we ask is that you give us a chance to help you through your sticking points, right? You have absolutely nothing to risk. All you got to do is click that link right now. Click that link, click that link, click that link. Get on the fast track to getting everything you want and getting the skills you need to hear more yeses in your life and have people find you charming, irresistible, and attractive in every aspect of your life. Predict other people's behaviors and protect yourself from the persuasion predators of the world. You have zero risk and everything to gain. Click the link, nlppower.com/face. And I promise you, I will be with you virtually and in person every step of the way. If you have questions, reach out to Mia and Moss in the chats. They are there to help you and answer any questions that you have regarding the programs. Let me just put these in these links in here for you. Click these links right now so we can move forward. Okay. Now, for those of you who've gotten benefits so far and want to take your training further, here's the thing I talked about a few minutes ago. I said there's two things you need to be successful. You need an identity, a belief system that says you deserve to have it. You need to be willing to become the person that can have it. You need to take action. One of the things I learned very, very early on in my persuasion world, in my hypnotherapy training, was that the behavior that gets rewarded gets repeated. The behavior that gets repeated gets reinforced. And I want to reward you right now for clicking that link and taking the action and leveling up. And here's what I'm going to do. For those of you who click that link right now, the first 21 people to click this link right now, I'm going to give you these special fast action bonuses that are going to completely blow your mind and change the game. They're going to change the game for you. Okay. First one, we're going to give you hands-on training. We're going to give you an opportunity to come and work with us either virtually or in a live training. Claudia says she can't find the link. Let me put that in there. http://www.nlppower.com/face. Hopefully that's the right one. If not, reach out to Moss or Mia. They will help you, Claudia. Let me explain the Mastermind Mentoring Program to you. I will jump out of my PowerPoint for just a moment so I can explain this to you because it needs to be really explained. So the way the Mastermind works is on the third Saturday of every month, you log in or you come to my facility here in San Diego, and I literally go, Claudia, what do you want to learn? Bryn, what do you want to learn? Julia, what do you want to learn? Julie, what do you want to learn? And I figure out what it is you want to learn about, and I write those things up on the board. After I write those things up on the board, I step back. I look at what you've asked to learn about. I find the connecting threads. I create a lesson plan for you right on the spot. And for the next 6 hours, we do drills and skills on those specific applications until you can do them in your sleep. Now, you can participate virtually in real time, or you can come and do it live with us in real time, right? You get 3 months to come in and focus only on the skills, the hands-on training that are going to take your skills to the next level. The best part is this particular program that I'm explaining to you started in October 2010. This month is literally the 13-year anniversary of the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program. We have videotaped every single training session from October 2010 all the way up to now. As a trial member of the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program, you will get unlimited, unfettered access to the entire 13-year archive. Stuff that's never seen the light of day on YouTube, stuff that's never been in a product, things that we don't even teach in live training sometimes. Everything from energetics to face reading to manifestation to accelerated learning to trauma resolution to psychic skills to remote viewing, remote influence, hidden laws of attraction and manifestation, regression therapy, conversational hypnosis, covert hypnosis, behavioral influence and applications, you name it. If it's in my wheelhouse and you want it and people wanted to learn it, it's in that archive. You can binge watch that for the entire time you're a member of the archive. And one of the things I will tell you about right up front is that because it's a member driven training, a lot of the material repeats from one month to the next because people want to learn the same things. You will not get a certificate from the Mastermind Mentoring Trial. What you will get is the one thing that takes you from access to the information to ownership of the information. And that's the rolling up your sleeves, doing the drills, getting the skills, getting the feedback so that you can go out into the world and apply those skills in real time on real human beings and get a predictable result. That's one of the things that we found is the super most important aspect of taking things from a virtual home study course environment and operationalizing it, functionalizing it, making it useful and workable for you. And that's why we do this, is because we don't just want you binging on the videos. That's always fun. But we want you to come into the mastermind and actually practice and get feedback, right? And again, if at the end of 90 days, you're getting so much value from it that you want to continue your membership, we'll show you how to do that, how to extend your membership out. If after 90 days, you got what you needed and you're ready to go out into the world, then your membership terminates. And even though you lose access to the archive, you still have the hands-on training that you got, right? So it's up to you how you want to do that. But that's one of the bonuses. Again, this particular bonus goes away when I log off the webinar, right? Everything I've talked about prior to this is good until 11:59 p.m. tonight. So click that link right now if you want the hands-on training and the real-world feedback from me. But when I log off the webinar tonight, the fast action bonus goes away. Okay, so I just wanted to make that really clear to you. Okay, but I'm not done, because remember, the behavior that gets rewarded gets repeated. The behavior that gets repeated gets reinforced, and I need you to be an action taker. If you want your life to change, that means you have to take the actions to do it, right? World is full of people who just watch the world go by instead of getting in the game. And I want you to get in the game. So here's what else I got for you. For those of you who are ready to level up, not only am I going to give you the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Trial membership, it's an $8,900 or $891 value. We're going to give this to you free. Total value is $7,879. We're not going to stop there. We're also going to include face reading for fun and profit level 2. This is everything below the mask. This is everything that will allow you to look at their ears, tell when their birth order is, tell when your siblings were born, when did they have are they people who can manage money well? Are they generous? Do they have good boundaries? Are they more willful, prideful, or stubborn? Do they have strong senses of ethics? Do they have a very strong ego and identity? All of these things are going to fill in the gaps left over by face reading for fun and profit level 1. So this is, again, you'll be able to look at a face and create a very powerful, very comprehensive behavioral character, personality and temperament profile on the person in under 90 seconds. It comes with full manuals, fully illustrated, a lot of really good pictures that are indicative of these things. And once again, you'll be able to diagnose personality and temperament. Are they generous? Are they stingy? Are they bossy? Are they someone who's a pushover? Do they have good boundaries? Do they have strong? Do they not have good boundaries? Do they have the potential to be more predatory? Do they have the potential to be very vindictive and manipulative? These are all things that you will learn by looking at the specific features of the face and combining the traits to make and extrapolate on them. It's a $1,997 value. We're going to give this to you absolutely free if you're one of the next 21 people to grab that, to click that link and grab that course right now. Okay. Again, click the link, click the link, click the link. Don't wait. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. And I'm going to be your personal mentor and instructor, both virtually and in the videos. And if you come to a live event in person, this is a $9,876 value if you did all the math. And speaking of live events, if you're one of the next 21 people to register before I jump off the webinar today, I'm going to let you come to one of my live trainings. I'm in January 23rd through the 27th here in San Diego, California. We'll be doing our next Killer Influence Secrets of Covert Hypnosis 5-day certification boot camp. You're going to get a VIP ticket. You're going to get a front row seat. You're going to be able to be in the room with me for 5 solid days, learning the most powerful NLP training and covert hypnosis training on the planet, integrating that with your face reading, your behavioral profiling skills, and becoming an unstoppable master of persuasion and influence. People were asking about live events. This is how you do it, right? Not only will you have the ability to the best training you can have from home, you're going to get to come to San Diego with me. And for 5 days, I'm going to lock you in a room with yours truly, and we're going to help you to embody and personify these skills that will allow you to control your emotional state at will, how to hypnotize anyone, anytime, any place, for any reason, just using words, how to create deep level of nonverbal influence that causes people to like, love, and trust you and primes them to want to believe what you say and do what you want, skills that allow you to emanate charisma on command, to read anyone instantly, detect lies, and so much more. We're going to talk about other types of coding systems that people have that make influencing them even easier. We'll talk once again about social hypnotic operators. We'll talk about proxemics, how to manage the spatial relationships between you and another person so that standing at a certain spot causes them to think about you a certain way. It's impossible to be caught. We'll talk about cold reading versus face reading, right? And how they can be used together to create maximum suggestibility and influence so you can get the maximum amount of behavioral change in the shortest amount of time possible. We'll talk about what we call dirty, rotten tricks. These are things that persuasion predators or more narcissistic, sociopathic pickup artists might try to do to you to get you to capitulate and comply with them. We're going to tell you what they look like, teach you how to do them so that you can protect yourself. And if you need to, every now and then, these little gray hat techniques, they might find them useful in dealing with the bad guys of the world. Right? We're going to teach you about, again, lie detection. We're going to teach you about group influence tactics and techniques. We're going to talk about the 4 pillars of irresistible hypnotic influence, the 4 macro categories of influence that if you master these, not only will people feel compelled to do what you want, they will want to do what you want them to do because they want you to like them. They want you to approve of them. Okay, we'll teach you how to hack the human nervous system so that the minute you start speaking, people can't not pay attention to you, how to connect with people on a deep level, go from complete stranger to intimacy in as little as 20 minutes, bordering on love, how they completely become more and more open and self-disclosing to you so you can make better decisions about who to let into your life and who to keep out. We'll talk about how to make people want to do the things they just told you they didn't want to do, and have them actually wanting to do those things in as little as 2 minutes, right? This is just some of what you'll be learning at the 5-day Killer Influence Covert Hypnosis Bootcamp, on top of the things I've talked about, the 7 most powerful hypnotic language patterns that exist, how to manage the emotional states of others, how to think like a master of influence, how to set and achieve goals and outcomes that actually have a much better chance of being achieved. These are all things, and plus and sometimes we actually teach you the self-hypnosis training so you can actually mentally program yourself to be even more powerful. So this is a $3,150 value. This is what we call a VIP super ticket. So let me explain a little bit about what that means to you. When you have one of these VIP super tickets, it means that you can use it anytime you want to. If for some reason you can't come to the training in January, you just pick up the phone, you let us know. The next time Killer Influence comes up, we'll reach out to you and say, hey, we have a new training coming up. Do you want to attend? And if you want to attend, we'll make a seat at the front row for you if you want a front row seat, right? Let's say you're planning on coming to the January training, but something comes up at the last minute. Let's say your boss makes you work. There's an airline strike. Family member's sick, you get in a car accident, something comes up that now you can't come to that training. If you're a holder of one of these VIP tickets, all you got to do is pick up the phone, let us know, we'll move you to another training. You have this ticket until you redeem it, until you choose to use it. If it takes you 4 years to come to a live event, in 4 years, this ticket will be good. Let's say you're not planning on coming to a particular training, and then at the last minute, your schedule frees up and you want to come, but the seminar is full. And I'm anticipating that the January training, because we've been promoting this for quite a while now, it's probably going to be really full and it's going to fill up really fast. If you're one of these VIP ticket holders, we will make a seat for you. Even if the training is full, we'll add an extra seat and you'll get to come to the front row and participate in that training. Let's say you can't make it, but you have a loved one or a family member or a colleague that you think would benefit from this training. You can gift them your VIP ticket. You could say, hey, I can't use this, but you're more than welcome to go in my place. And they can come and get a front row seat and get some of the best, most powerful hypnosis and NLP training that exists in the world today. Let's say between now and January, we raise the price. Maybe we go to $37.50 or $41.97 or something like that. Your price is guaranteed. If you're a VIP ticket holder, it doesn't matter what the price point is. You will always be able to get in and you will always get your free seat when you redeem that VIP ticket. So that's pretty freaking awesome deal. As long as you're in our VIP ticket holder database, this ticket is good until you choose to redeem it, right? All you need to do to claim it's a total. Now let's look at the math now. Total value is $13,026. Okay. So let's review what we got here. Face Reading for Fun and Profit home study course. It's a $1,997 value. We're going to give that to you free. Well, actually, we got a little boo-boo there. That's a typo. Hold on a second. Oops, that didn't work out the way I planned it. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. Oops. Sorry about that. These things happen. Okay. So, Face Reading for Fun and Profit home study course is a $1,997 value. We're going to give to you absolutely free the Defense Against the Dark Arts home study course. Again, $1,997 value, yours free. We're going to give you the Identity by Design home study course, $1,497 value. We're going to give that to you absolutely free. We're going to include the People Reading for Fun and Profit home study course, $1,497 value. We're going to give that to you free. The NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Trial Program, 3-month trial, plus the archive, $891 value. We're going to give that to you free. You're going to get the Face Reading for Fun and Profit Level 2 home study course, $1,997 value, absolutely free. And of course, you're going to get that Killer Influence VIP Super Ticket or 5-day Covert Hypnosis Certification Boot Camp, $3,150 value. We're going to give that to you absolutely free. And total package value is $13,026. You can get it all for one low installment of just $9. Do the math, guys. One low installment of $997 or 3 easy installments of $397 each. All you got to do is click this link right now, www.killerinfluence.com/face. That's www.killerinfluence.com/FACE. Okay. Go ahead and click that link right now. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a 7-minute break. Wahaha, I found a way. Welcome aboard, Courtney. Welcome aboard. All right. We're going to go ahead and take a 7-minute break. When we come back in 7 minutes, we're going to pick up and we're going to commence part 3 of the webinar. We're going to pick up where we left off on the facial mat. And then I will take questions on any other aspect of face reading that you're interested in. But go ahead and click those links right now before all the free training slots are gone. Apparently, we're getting a lot of traffic over here. So by all means, go ahead and click that link right now. Click it, click it, click it. And we will see you in 7 minutes. Talk to you soon. All right, my friends, coming down toward the end of our break. What questions do you have? Other questions can I answer for you, if any? Okay. What questions do you guys have for me before we move into part 3? Bueller? Bueller? All right. All right, my friends, let's go back to our facial map. Okay. So when last we left our intrepid lady here, we were talking about joy, sadness, sorrow, grief, etc. The next couple lines I want us to look at, we can see these on the face. First one is humor. Humor can be seen by a single line in the bottom lip. Okay. Now, people with this kind of line, they appreciate jokes. They can often tell a good joke. Contrast that when we look at this is a little fun factoid. When we look at the space between the upper lip and the base of the nose, this area is called the philtrum. When you look at people, one of the things you want to pay attention to is how much space is there. In other words, is the philtrum long, medium, or short? Okay. And the reason that we look at this is because when you see somebody who has a really short philtrum, when the area between here and here is really small, you're looking at somebody who is sensitive to criticism. Okay. And that relates to humor in the fact that this person can appreciate humor about other people, but will not they can't take teasing, will not tolerate teasing very well. So you want to be very, very careful when you see a very short philtrum. These people tend to take things a little bit more, even if they don't show it, they'll tend to take things a little bit more personally. So obviously, the longer the philtrum, the inverse is true. These people tend to be a little bit more easygoing, a little bit more laid back. They can kind of be a little bit more, they can laugh at themselves. Whereas the people with the shorter philtrums, not so much. Now, there's also another trait that's not on this map, and it's not an emotional characteristic so much as a behavioral one. In fact, we've seen the behavior connected to this marking so often in Planet David, and at the minute with somebody we see somebody with this marking, we automatically put them on observation. So one of the things you'll see every now and then is someone with a little extra flesh right here, right? And it's usually it's like somebody took a little, how can I express this? It's like somebody took a little piece of clay. You know how sometimes if you put your fingers in clay and pinch it, there's a little lip or a little tiny piece that's where you smushed it together. It's like somebody took their lip and just pinched it a little bit, and that created a little extra flesh there. This is, and the reason I talk about this, both the philtrum and this piece of flesh, because both each of my kids has one of these things. The short philtrum, very sensitive to criticism. Okay. The little extra flesh, These people have their drama. They create drama. All right. These people will cause fights with people or get in arguments with people just because they're bored. Okay. And so drama tends to follow these people wherever they go. I've seen this marking 5 or 6 times coming through people in my trainings. And it's always played out that way. So the thing to remember when you see that little fleshy marking is that these people, in addition to being drama magnets, will blow things way out of proportion. And here's one of the defining characteristics of this. When you try to tell people about this, they will deny it. They will deny it, and they will get dramatically, virulently, over the top, emphatic about denying it. So if someone has gotten Botox, then do they end up with the characteristics? Depends on where they've gotten the Botox, but Botox in general tends to numb or dampen emotional responsiveness and emotional affect. So a lot of times people will get Botox in between the eyes to smooth out the wrinkles here. And so they'll lose their ability to express. Conversely, they'll also lose their ability to process those emotions. So they'll tend to have a little bit more repression going on, even though they're not consciously showing it. Injecting neurotoxin into any part of your body is really not a good idea ever. Okay. But because this part of the body, a part of the face, is connected to the liver and the gallbladder, that's the area those particular toxins will tend to affect. Okay. So I hope that helps. Right. So even though the two things I just talked about, the size of the philtrum and that little extra flesh are not on your emotional map, I want you to be very sensitive and be very aware of people who have those particular characteristics, and see if the behavior is consistent, right? Now remember, people can be very sensitive to criticism, but won't show it until they reach a certain limit. Okay, is this helpful? Is this useful? Type it in the chat. Yes and yes. We having fun so far? Bueller? Remember, I thrive on interaction. I get neurotic if you guys don't give me empathic and emphatic constant interactiveness. All right, helpful, definitely. Okay, very good. All right, let's get back to so the mouth is really a very powerful. We can tell a lot of. Obviously, the mouth is one of the most expressive parts of the human body, but just the thickness and the fleshiness and the length and the angle of the mouth will tell us different things about different people. And again, when you come to face reading for Fun and Profit, or you come to Killer Influence, we'll go over some of those characteristics so you can get an even deeper level of profiling. But today, one of the things that I find that I want to focus on once again is the emotions of the face, because I think for you, the ability to unpack and read people's emotions is going to be one of the fastest ways to turn your training tonight into something that is generating a return on your investment. And so that's kind of where I want to go. Okay. Let's see here. Back to sharing the screen. All right. So I don't know why my program decided to put a little heart there, but it's just kind of cute. All right, so let's look at four major traits that I want to that we're going to take them individually, but together they can create a problem. And this again is something that would be really, really helpful for medical practitioners or people who do a lot of work with chronic or terminal illness and repressed emotion. One of the first things we want to look at is little vertical lines in the upper lip. These lines are known as over-nurturing lines. When you see these lines, these are indicative of somebody who has been trained from childhood that if you give, you will receive. It's more important to give than to receive. And so what they've been doing, either most of their life or a significant amount of time in their lives, is they've been just giving and giving and giving and giving, waiting for somebody to actually return to the same degree that they feel that they've been giving, because they're playing by a set of rules that say you will get back from the universe in proportion to what you get. And what happens is, with these people, they keep giving and giving and giving, but they never get back. And so they never feel nurtured or nourished to the same degree that they are giving. And so what happens over time is they will develop these lines, these vertical lines above the lip. They also tend to come down with intestinal stuff, intestinal issues. So IBS, Crohn's disease. What are some other ones? Constipation, chi stagnation. There's some others that escape me. But when you see these lines, what you're dealing with is somebody who spent so much time giving away their energy to everybody else that they actually start to feel cheated. They feel disappointed because life isn't playing by the rules that they've been playing by. And they keep trying to play by those rules, but they keep seeing people getting ahead but not playing by those rules. And it starts to cause them to become the disappointment that they feel, which causes these little lines at the corner of the mouth. That's what these lines mean. These wrinkles at the corner of the mouth are disappointment lines. This constant disappointment that they're receiving from the over-nurturing behaviors causes them to become very bitter. And bitterness can be seen by vertical lines below the lower lip. Now, each of these can be there individually. They can be there on its own. But when you see these lines, all three sets of these lines, and they're deep and they're long, what you'll often, and again, please take this in the spirit in which it's not meant as a diagnosis or a course of medical treatment. It's often a recipe for cancer. Okay. And the reason and the way this pathology plays out is the over-nurturing continues. They become increasingly disappointed. They're getting more and more tired. The disappointment is growing. They start to get really, really bitter. And then they start to lapse into, at some level, a feeling of hopelessness. And so what happens when the unconscious mind doesn't see any way out of something, many times it will manifest illness, either as a coping mechanism, communication, or an escape. So in other words, as a coping mechanism, somebody who has these lines and develops a cancer, all of a sudden people start being nicer. They start doing things for them. They start taking care of things that the other person would have to take care of on their own. In therapeutic world, we would call this a secondary gain. Another way that it can manifest is as a communication. Disease often manifests as a metaphor or unresolved emotion. So a lot of times when people manifest an illness, that's the unconscious mind trying to communicate that there's something unresolved at the deeper level that needs to be addressed. So you have coping mechanism, communication, and finally as an escape. If a person lapses into hopelessness, they will manifest an illness as a way to leave. Okay. Now, clinically, I've dealt with all levels of this. They're all treatable as long as you can get the person to want to change. Okay. So here's the bottom line. Each of these is its own trait. okay? You have bitterness or over nurturing, I'm sorry, here, disappointment, and bitterness. When these three show up together, now these people are on a trajectory. Now, that doesn't mean if you have all three of these markings that you're going to get cancer or that you have cancer. So I don't want you to assume that that's the case. What I'm saying is that if you have these markings, you have shit to clear. And if you don't clear it, it's going to get your attention one way or another. So you need to go in and unpack the negative emotions. You need to transform the limiting beliefs and install a better belief system that allows you to perceive yourself in the world and generate better behaviors. Okay, and this is actually one of the strengths that face reading allows us to do is once we can target what your emotional patterns are, we know where to go. We know how to change it. That's why we gave you the package that we gave you with Identity by Design and the conversation hypnosis techniques, because now we can track that back to its source. We can eliminate it and we can help people resolve it. So you can do this with yourself. You can do this with other people. Barbara's saying, how do you change? Hold on a second. How do you change beliefs? Oh, that's all in Identity by Design. In the Identity by Design program, in your package, all the ways to do that are there. You also can use renegade reframing or some of the other NLP belief change tactics. Magnum Opus said, David, could you use my face to review the lines? I could. I probably won't. But because that could take us in a direction that, again, takes us off track. But for those of you who want face readings, we do offer them. They're not cheap, but I do have several certified face readers online. So if you want to get your face read, give them us a call at 858-282-4663. And we're happy to set that up for you. Okay. So one of the lines that's on a more positive note, one of the lines that's actually more beneficial that we like to have, is a line right here. A line that extends from where the ala nasi or the nostril meets the face and extends down. In the Chinese system, these lines are called fa ling, otherwise known as purpose lines. The Chinese would say that, or the Asians would say that if you don't have these lines by the time you're 50, you're doing something wrong. And these lines indicate somebody who is doing what they came here to do. They're on track in their career, their personal life, their spiritual journey. They're on track. So these are lines that are really, we tend to call them laugh lines, but they're actually lines that you actually want to have that show that you're on track. Natalie says, phew, got those lines. You got that right. Now, going back to what we talked about earlier about public versus private. If I'm looking at somebody and on the right side of their face, this line is super deep, but this line is barely there. What does that tell us? What does that tell us? If the line on the public side is long and deep, but the one on the private side is shallow and short, what can we extrapolate from that? Type the answer in your chat. Come on, guys, you got to be taking notes. Bueller? Professional purpose or goals? Okay, Barry says. Anybody else? Avery says, this person hasn't fully owned up to their purpose for being on this earth. Okay, which line, Avery, for you, which line would tell you that? Which line tells you that? The one on the right or the one on the left? The one on the public side or the one on the private side? Nicole says they can feel a sense of purpose with others, not with family or friends. Okay. Courtney's saying purpose professionally in the right pot. Okay, doing the right job. Okay. Okay, you guys are on the right track. If I see someone who's got stronger lines or falling lines on their public side, this tells me that on a professional level, on a interactiveness level, this person is life is on track. They're doing professionally what is in harmony with their spiritual nature, what they came here to do, but they're not quite as in sync in their personal life. You'll see this a lot of times in workaholics, right? People who are just so passionate about what they do for money or as a career, but their family's neglected. Or when they get home, all they do is get shit for why they're not home. And in this kind of a scenario, you'll see someone who has a less than satisfying family life. It could also be, now here's the thing, it'll tell us the level of satisfaction that a person is experiencing, but it won't necessarily tell us what is causing that. And that's an important distinction to make. We know what's happening, but we don't know why. We don't know what's causing it. And so part of the job of a face reader, especially one who's trained by me, is once you figure out what's going on, how do we get people to their why? How do we get to the reason behind why these markings are the way they are? Right? And that's why I put the package together for you that I did, because if you're going to be a face reader in my world, you also have to have therapeutic techniques and applications to fix what you unpack. Now, many times, just the act of unpacking a facial marking will cause that marking to change and go away. But there are faster ways to do it if you have the training. And so that's why we included that in the package that we did. Another marking I want you to be very aware of is here on the chin. Now, on your facial diagram, you see look like little wrinkles or lines. In actuality, what I see more often than not look more like little orange peels. So when you see this little dappling or dimpling in the chin, you're dealing with someone who has experienced and repressed a lot of fear. So these people have hidden fears and insecurities that are keeping them from exerting their will and going forward in life. So once again, you have to be very, very diplomatic and gentle in how you talk to people about this. Barbara says, ooh, I've got those. Now, how you would talk to people about that, you say, you have a beautiful chin. And I've noticed that you have these slight little markings, these slight, almost like orange peel type markings on your chin. And many people who express this marking have often experienced a lot of fear in their past, fears that they're kind of holding on to. And I'm curious, would that be true for you? And what you got to do is you got to watch their face. And specifically, you're looking for two things. As you describe and you start asking questions about a marking, does the light in their eyes change? Do they get brighter? When you see the eyes get brighter, what you're seeing are moments of shedding in. You're seeing moments where more of their spirit is being pulled back into their body. Because as face readers, that's what we want to do. We want to pull someone's spirit back into their body and have them become more identified and associated into the meat. Because when they do that, the body gets healthier. The more traumatized a body gets, the more stuff it represses, the less hospitable and uncomfortable the environment becomes, the more a person's mind and spirit want to remove itself from that. Okay? Okay. So when we see these markings, especially if you're a therapist, chances are, if this person's having trouble moving forward in life, you're going to be dealing with a lot of repressed fear, anxiety, phobias, and worry. Okay. So for those of you who are maybe joining us late, this is Face Reading for Fun and Profit. And we have an amazingly cool training opportunity for you guys. So let me just remind you that the fast action bonuses go away when I log off the webinar. And so here's what we got for you, okay? Starts with the Face Reading for Fun and Profit Level 1 Home Study course. It's a $1,997 value. We're going to include absolutely free of charge our premier NLP and covert hypnosis training program, ranked the #1 NLP training course of 2022 and 2023. This is Defense Against the Dark Arts. It's a $1,997 value. We're going to give it to you free. We're going to include the Identity by Design Hypnotherapy Home Study Course. It's a $1,497 value. We're going to include that for you absolutely free. We're going to give you the People Reading for Fun and Profit Home Study Course, $1,497 value. You're going to get that one free. We're going to give you the 3-month trial membership to the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program and access to the 13-year video archive. It's an $891 value. We're going to give that to you free. You're going to get Face Reading for Fun and Profit Level 2 Home Study Course. It's the compendium and the companion to the Level 1 program that we started with. It's a $1,997 value. And we're going to give that to you absolutely free. And for the next 21 people who register and grab their package today, you're going to get 100% absolutely free as a fast action super bonus. You're going to get a VIP ticket to our next 5-day Killer Influence Secrets of Covert Hypnosis Certification Bootcamp, January 23rd to the 27th, 2024, here in San Diego, California. People were asking, oh, I already have. Now, let's say you've bought one of our packages in the past and you already have one of these programs. All you have to do is reach out to Moss, let him know, and you can choose something of equal or lesser value, and we will happily customize that program. We'll swap it out for you so you don't have duplicates and you still get the full value of the package. That's something we just do automatically. I forgot to mention it earlier, just because I was trying to get through all the different things and make sure that people were getting the biggest bang for their buck. So Lamar Farah is asking, showing the public of what one doesn't have yet. Okay. I think that's referring to the falling lines. M9 is asking, what does facial hair indicate? For example, what would a soul patch indicate? I don't actually know what a soul patch is, M9. So I don't, are you talking about those little triangles that people put here? Usually hair in an area indicates an attempt to energize or amplify a trait. So a lot of people, when they have facial hair, it will be an exaggeration or an amplification of somebody. People with beards will tend to be a little bit more willful, especially if they're really full on the jaw. They'll be very strong ethically. People with more triangular chins, and usually the soul patch will exemplify that triangular aspect of the chin. These people will be a little bit more willful, but they'll also be a little bit more, I don't want to say they're going to be more narcissistic, but they're going to be a little bit more all about themselves, more so than about a group. So one of the things I learned in one of my face reading trainings was that people with broader chins and jaws are very strong leaders. But the broader the chin, the broader the jaw, the more group-oriented or servant leadership-oriented a person is. Whereas when the chin is narrower, these people are strong leaders as well, but they're more of the I'm the boss, do what I say, and serve me kind of people, right? So both of them are very strong leaders, but one has more of a group servant leadership kind of a mindset, whereas the other one's a little bit more all about them. Both types of leaders can be extremely effective. It's just, what's your leadership style? What's your management style, right? But both have a strong will. Barbara says, David, you're giving us gold. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad, right? And if you've got even 2 things that you like, I encourage you to click the link right now. Go to nlppower.com/face and support the training, support Planet David. Grab your course, become a face reader, become someone who's an agent of change and transformation, and start changing the world one person at a time, starting with you. Click the link and get yourself on the fast track to literally embodying these skills. Okay. What about skin moles and scars? Skin moles tend to amplify the energy in the area corresponding to the trait. So if I have a mole on my chin, that's a little extra energy of willfulness that I can use. If I have a mole on my eyelid, for example, or a mole on my on my forehead, for example, this is somebody I'm going to be a little bit more have more of achieving energy, right? So moles, and many times, tend to amplify the energy connected to a particular location, trait, or attribute. If I have a mole on my nose, I may be more egocentric and a little bit more, have a bigger sense of self and personal empowerment than someone without one of those, right? I've seen different. I don't talk about mole. I talk about moles a little bit in my classical face reading training. I have two different face reading programs that I run. I have face reading for fun and profit, and then I have what I call classical Chinese 5-element face reading, which you need a little bit more background in energetics, qigong, and Chinese medical theory to really get the most out of that program. So I start with people who can't even spell Chinese medicine. And give them what they absolutely need to be influential and persuasive and be able to profile. And then if people want to learn more of the energetic classical stuff, then I have a different training silo for that. And so a lot of the times we'll talk more about the moles and things of that nature in the 5-element face reading and the classical Chinese face reading program. So the mustache is energizing the reproductive system. It can. It can also be because it's adding extra protection to an area and adding more energy. It could also systematically affect the intestines, because that's an intestinal area. It's also a reproductive area for some things. Okay, so again, there's different teachers will give you different interpretations of that. But for example, like the face, the hair thing, I actually learned my first exposure to face reading was in martial arts, and I would learn how to read the face so I knew where the energy was strongest so I could manipulate that energy. And one of the things I was taught to look for was facial hair, because facial hair would give it an extra layer of protection, and the more hair that was in an area, the more energy and sensitivity it tended to have. So if we take that and we extrapolate to the location, we can say, okay, when someone is growing a mustache, for example, they're guarding that area and causing a reservoir of energy to build up in that area, which can amplify the traits, right? So hopefully that. What about birthmarks? Once again, birthmarks, depending on where they're at, can either enhance an energetic correspondence or they can actually impede one. Okay, M9 says, thank you. I can recommend you to some good friends. Thank you. Excellent. So yeah, one of the things we want when we start looking at markings on the face, things that we weren't born with, for example, one of the things we look at is scars. A lot of times, scars have, believe it or not, and again, when the first time I heard this, I screamed bullshit from across the room so loud that people turned around and looked at me. Okay, first time it happened was when Lillian said that if you actually succeed in unpacking an emotional marking on the face, that marking will go away. And the first thing, I'm in the back of a symposium, I'm going, bullshit! And she heard me from across the room. And she started unpacking my face, and like the woman was dead on. It's like, oh, there's something here, right? The next thing where I had my bullshit moment was when she said, a lot of times, if you get a scar, all right, let's take a little. So your history and your timeline is written on your face. And let me show you what that looks like. So what you see here for men, your timeline from conception to about age 120 starts on the left ear. Start 1, 2, 3, hold on a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 through 14, and then 15 zigzags down the face. So let's say that you're 14 years old, right? So chronologically, you're here, and you have a fall, or you walk into a door and you wind up with a scar here. According to the energetics and the vibration of what's happening there, unless you do something, something is going to happen to you around the age of 22 to 24, because that scar is predictive of something that's waiting for you. Okay, the question was asked about birthmarks. Let's say that when I'm born, I have a marking here, right? So I'm born here, or I'm born here, and then I go through my life. Something is waiting for me at that age. Now, the nice thing about this is that if you understand this, you can actually do something about it. You can start to unpack this this line before you get to it. And so instead of it being this life-altering, world-shattering, cataclysmic event, it's a speed bump, right? So there is a predictive aspect to this. And again, another one that's really crazy is people always mark when their siblings are born. So like if I'm doing a face reading and I'm working with a woman and she's a mother and she wants to have another baby, she might ask me something like, "Can you tell me when I'm going to have my next child?" And I'll look at her and say no. And she'll say, "Why?" I said, "Because your child isn't here right now." Because it's not the mother who marks when the next child is born. It's the child who marks when the next child is born. So if you have a son or a daughter, in order for me to tell when the next child is going to be born, I have to read their ear, not yours. And that's scarily accurate. So as woo-woo as it sounds, there's some kind of mechanism at work that can predict things that are going to happen. But here's what's really cool is it's not set in stone. You can change things if you know how to unpack them. Now that's not the focus of what this particular course is about. But in the medical qigong, or not medical qigong, in the medical face reading, the jing, the qi, the shen modules, and the classical face reading, these are things that we look at. Right? If you had trouble in utero, like when you were conceived and you had trouble during the birth process, it will mark on the child's ear. Right? If you were a wanted baby or an unwanted baby, it will mark on your ear. Those are part of what we call the constitutional training, the Jing trainings. That's not what this is about. But since people are asking about birthmarks and things of that nature, scars, moles, things like that, where that mole is on the face can be indicative of an event waiting for you. Same idea. Where does the skin tab show up in terms of the chronological age? Now, I'll give you one last piece before we go back to the facial map. Women's age markings and men's age markings are different. And here's what I mean by that. Let's go back to our little map. So women, when we look at their ear, their lines begin on the right side. So their right ear, they'll start with 0 at conception, and then 1, 2, 3, all the way over to, did I get that right? Yeah, 7 years old. And then it'll pick up on the opposite ear. So it goes right ear, left ear, and then it'll go down the middle. Men are the opposite. Men will start on the left, and then they'll pick up on the right, and then they'll zigzag down the middle on the face. Okay? So the way I remember this, and again, this is not something you need to remember. It's not something you're going to find really useful right away. But since we're on the subject of it, I decided to share it with you. Yeah, basically the way I do it is women are always right, and what's left are men. That always gets a laugh in my classes. Women are always right, and what's left are men. Right? So we can track a lot of things in your personal history. Now, a lot of times you'll see little indentations, scars, markings that intersect various age markers. Many times those indentations and wrinkles are indicative of trauma. traumas happened at that particular age, right? And so many times when I'm reading a face, I'll say, well, what happened when you were 27, right? And if you start asking questions like that, be ready, because many times you will provoke an emotional abreaction in the person. I think my record for creating an abreaction in somebody is like 35 seconds. Where I was literally teaching a seminar. I'm walking down the aisle. I look at this lady's ear, and I said to her, "What happened when you were 5?" And boom, the dam broke. She breaks down. She's having these emotional discharges, and it took us about 3 hours to clear all that stuff for her, because that's what we do. If you invoke it, you got to help them clear it, right? That's why I say be careful. This information is powerful, and it goes right to people's emotional triggers. So use it with love, respect, compassion. Don't be afraid to use it, but use it with wisdom. Okay? Use it with wisdom, because you really do gain an immense ability to influence people. Okay? Is this useful? Is this helpful? You guys enjoying the show so far? Yes or yes? Extremely useful. Okay, good. All right, so let's go back once again, because repetition is the secret to this. Again, if you're enjoying the process, if you see how this can help you, by all means, please click this link, go to nlppower.com/face, grab your course before they're all gone. Again, you're going to get the Secrets of Face Reading Level 1 Home Study course. You're going to get Defense Against the Dark Arts, absolutely free. You're going to get the Identity by Design Home Study course. Again, if you're going to read faces, this is an important course to have. Okay, Defense Against the Dark Arts will help you protect yourself and influence others. The Identity by Design course will help you to heal what you find, both in yourself and other people. People Reading for Fun and Profit will allow you to read other people's dress, body language, and carry yourself with more poise, confidence, and charisma. The Mastermind Mentoring Trial Program and Archive will give you the opportunity to get hands-on training and feedback in real time for 3 solid months, plus access to a huge skill set. And then finally, you get the Face Reading for Fun and Profit Level 2, which builds on the training in Face Reading Level 1. And then you get to actually get into a room with 30 or 40 of your colleagues and comrades in arms and practice and totally immerse yourself in these skills. It's a $13,026 value. You can get all of this plus all of our comprehensive feedback and support from Moss and Mia and myself for one low investment of just $997. It's not going to get easier, guys. It's not going to get less expensive. In fact, the prices are probably going up again soon. So I want you to get the biggest bang for your buck. You can break that into 3 easy installments, but click this link right now. Seriously, click it. www.nlppower.com/face. Invest in yourself and take your life and the lives of those you care about to the next level. Okay, let's go back. And the links are in the chat, so please go ahead and jump in those. And let's go to here. We're back to emotions. Okay, so another set of emotions that you want to look at. Let's get this off there. And these are kind of interesting. You know what? I have to show you. I have to go back to the ear map to show you this. Now, on the side of the face, right in front of the ear, you'll see little wrinkles sometimes. They're like little gills. And these are called auditory intuition lines. So let me explain these really quick. I have these in abundance. You probably can't see them on that screen. But these lines are like little wrinkles right in front of the ear. And this is a form of auditory hypervigilance. These lines come about because the person who manifested them grew up in an environment that was not safe. And it was not safe on a verbal or vocal level. This person developed the ability to hear things and hear subtle cues in people's spoken language, either tonally, verbally in terms of the actual word usage, things of that nature, that will let them know when to hold their, to be careful what they say and be careful how they act. So people grow up with where they have to literally walk on eggshells. They develop these lines. So it starts off as a form of self-protection. But what happens is over time, these people develop the ability to intuitively detect bullshit, to understand subtext, to understand when people are maybe holding something back or spinning things that aren't exactly the way they actually happened. So we call these people they have natural bullshit detectors, right? Now, physiologically, what's interesting about this from a Chinese medical perspective is that these particular lines are located on energetic meridian or pathway known as the triple warmer meridian. Now, the triple warmer meridian, one of the functions of it is lymphatics, but the other is water metabolism. And so what you'll see many times, people who have these markings are often prone to dehydration, to poor fluid management, okay? And so one of the things that happens, if they're aware of it, is they're always drinking water, right? They're constantly drinking. But one of the side effects of drinking a lot of water is that you flush the electrolytes out of your system. So we supplement with water, but we don't replenish the electrolytes. And so what happens, because of that deficient electrolyte balance, we start to experience irregular heartbeats like tachycardia or hypocard or tachycardia, and forget what the slow heartbeat is, but it's erratic. And we often think, people with this marking often think they're having panic or anxiety attacks because of the poor electrolyte balance. And so they think they have a lot of anxiety, when in actuality, what's going on is they don't have enough electrolytes. So in a huge number of the people I've worked with, just supplement, if you have these markings, start taking electrolytes on a daily basis and notice if your panic attacks or your anxiety attacks start to diminish and go away. Has anybody noticed that? Yes or yes? Bueller? Yeah. Again, one of the things I did, because I have these, and I would have these rapid heartbeats all the time, and I'm like, I'm pretty chill most of the time. Why am I getting this? Why am I having trouble sleeping? And when I was getting taught and trained this by Lillian, and I found out about these markings, I said, well, let's start supplementing with electrolytes and magnesium and see what happens. And lo and behold, within a couple of days, my rapid heartbeats and everything just started to even out. So again, if you have these lines and you are prone to panic or anxiety attacks, or at least the tachycardia, rapid heartbeats or regular heartbeats, try supplementing with electrolytes and see what happens, right? I'm not prescribing it, but it's a food, so it's relatively harmless, right? But again, if you have any doubts, consult your physician before beginning any kind of changes in your diet regimen or anything like that. Okay. Yeah, and again, check these markings and see if they're there. Now, while we're on the subject of cardiovascular or heart issues, there's another marking on the ear, which I'm going to show you on our diagram here, that, again, I also want you to be aware of. This one's really important. And it often manifests as little lines or wrinkles on the ear. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 3, right? Western medical people actually call this the cardiac notch. So you'll see the same body or facial trait in the Western side as well as the Eastern side. People with these wrinkles in their ear tend to have erratic, or they have blood pressure issues. And what I mean by blood pressure issues is erratic blood pressure, right? Sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low, right? But and the other thing that behaviorally that you'll see with this particular trait is these people are prone to exaggerated stress or shock responses. So let me give you an example for this. If somebody has these markings, and you know how sometimes you're walking down a hallway and somebody unexpectedly comes out of a doorway or around a corner and you have that startle effect? So if the average stress level in the average human being is a 3 or 4, someone with this marking who has that same experience, their stress level may be like an 8, 9, or 10, where they literally, like, sometimes they get dizzy, they faint because of the shock or the surprise. So a lot of times these people will experience an emotional event with an exaggerated way. So now, if you have these markings, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a heart attack and die, or you're going to have a stroke or whatever, but it does mean you should probably spend more time meditating and learning how to regulate your stress levels so that you're much harder to knock off balance. The other thing is you should probably really pay close attention to your cardiovascular health so that you're not doing things through your lifestyle, your diet, your exercise level, things of that nature that could lead to cardiac issues down the line. Again, it's not necessarily an indicator that you have a heart problem, but the potential for one, if that makes any kind of sense. Okay, is this helpful? Is this useful? Cool. All right. Coming into the home stretch here. You guys want me to finish the facial map, or do you guys want to just do random questions? It's up to you. Which direction do you want to go? Map. Amber says she wants the map. Okay. Map. Okay. Facial map is good. All right, good. So here's where we're at so far. We've covered skepticism, joy, sadness, sorrow, grief, humor, bitterness, fear, over-nurturing, disappointment, purpose, auditory intuition, blood pressure regularities. The next one we want to look at is pain. Now, pain can be physical or it can be emotional. These lines, if you see someone who's not currently in pain, but you see these markings, I would say better than 7 out of 10% chance, or 7 out of 10, 70 out of 100% chance that they've repressed a severe amount of emotional pain. They're hurting inside. Okay. If you see this on somebody, ask them if they have any physical pain that they're going through, or that they've been suffering from for a long period of time. Now, these lines, they start at the outer canthi, or the outer corner of the eye, and they migrate diagonally towards the center of the face. So whereas joy, sadness, and sorrow start from the outer canthus and they move laterally, they move outward, these start outward and move inward towards the bridge of the nose. Okay. Now you'll notice there's some lines right here. These lines also move down the bridge of the nose. These are called disempowerment lines. So I want to talk about these lines a bit more than I want to talk about pain lines, because I worked a lot with chronic and intractable pain. So you'll see that, and you'll see those pain markings in those kinds of patients. But if you're doing therapy work like hypnotherapy or NLP or coaching or mentoring, counseling of any kind, if you see people with these lines down the sides of their nose, like in the diagram, let me explain how this manifests. How many of you are familiar with an old television sitcom called All in the Family? Type it in the chat if you know what I'm talking about. If not, it would never make it on the air in the 21st century because of how politically incorrect it is compared to the modern culture. But in that show, there's the main character is a guy named Archie Bunker, who is the world's stereotypical white dude Protestant bigot. It's just him, right? And then there's his wife Edith. Now, Archie is the king of his castle, right? And Edith is the lady who's always trying to make it better. So anytime Archie's upset, anytime Archie's pissed off, anytime Archie's hungry, okay, Archie, it's okay. We'll make it better. Whatever you want, we'll do that, right? We call these disempowerment lines, right? Because what happens in this person's life is that at some point in their life, sometimes, usually more than once, somebody violated their boundaries, right? Somebody either physically tried to hurt them or impose themselves on them, or emotionally or cognitively tried to impose themselves on them and just overran their boundaries. And this person valiantly attempted to fight back, attempted to say, no, you can't do that. That's not okay. And when they said that, that's not okay, you can't do that, I don't want you to do that, the person they're pushing back against pushed back even harder. And rather than continue to fight, the person just wanted to make it stop. So they said, okay, whatever you want, just don't hurt me, just don't hit me, just don't punish me in any way. And they started doing anything they could to appease the violator. Okay? And over time, what will happen is that appeasement or that disempowerment will manifest as lines down the sides of the nose. Okay. And I've seen some really, really intense examples. I've seen examples of people when they're not making any expression at all. It's like somebody took a little X-Acto knife or a little box cutter and just cut little divots in the side of their nose. Now, if you're a caregiver, a therapist, a coach, a teacher, and you see these markings, guaranteed dollars to donuts, somehow, somewhere in that person's history, they've been put into that appeasement position. So it's almost always seen in some form of abuse, bullying. Sometimes you'll see this in ass kissers. You'll see this in people who don't have a lot of power themselves, and so they'll give you gifts and things of that nature to get you to like them so you won't hurt them, right? But when you see these lines in a client, you've got someone who on the surface will tend to be very upright, very, stands up for themselves. But if you just push back a little bit harder, they'll collapse like a house of cards, and they'll basically give in to what you want. Now, my theory on this, and again, this is purely David's years of observation. If one of the things we'll talk about in Defense Against the Dark Arts and in Killer Influence at the training is how do these persuasion predators, how do they know who to pick on? How do they know who to target? And while there are some obvious things that these predators learn, I think there's also an intuitive part. Certain facial characteristics, certain body language characteristics that are hardwired into these people that they know who's the easy target. And I believe, my personal belief, is that one of them are these markings. Okay. And so, again, if you take liberties with someone who has this tendency and they push back, and then you push back hard and they just give you what you want, that's a perfect target for someone who is more on the predatory spectrum, right? For you as a therapist, if you have these markings, or you're working with people with these markings, even if that's not what they're coming to you for, at some point that's probably going to come up. So you want to start to build into your treatment protocols, for lack of a better word, ego strengthening and shoring up those defenses and boundary protection mechanisms. Okay, because it can lead to people who go into appeasement very, very easily. Okay. Let's do one more really quickly. And I like to erase so we don't get confused. Okay. Another line that we want to look at is right here. Now, there's several varieties of this line. What you're seeing here is irritation, annoyance, or impatience. I have these lines like it's nobody's business. Every now and then, you'll see somebody with 3 lines. When you see someone who has 3 lines, what you've encountered is someone who's learned how to manage their impatience and annoyance. So these people still may feel annoyed, but they've learned how to manage it. Also, every now and then, it's been a lot in California, you'll meet someone who has one big old line right down the center, just like that. In the Chinese systems, we call this a suspended needle or a suspended sword. And this indicates somebody who has a strong need to prove themselves, who usually has a strong anger at either a parent or a sibling. And it's usually a male dominant relationship. So a lot of times it's a father towards a son or a son towards a father. And when you see this marking, the way this usually comes about, as it was explained to me, was that these people got really mad at some injustice that they were subjected to. And they fought back. They released and let their anger go. And they vented their anger and they pushed back. And when they pushed back, they were punished. For getting angry. To be more specific, they were punished for expressing their anger. And the punishment was so severe that these people decided that they were never going to let themselves get that angry ever again. And so they took that energy, which is connected to your liver, and they locked it down. They put a little barrier in their willingness and ability to express their wood energy. Now, let me explain why this is a bad thing. You say, well, why is not expressing anger a bad thing? Because it's not just about the anger. This part of your body is connected to your ability to achieve results in life. Okay. We would say it's a wood dominated area. Okay. So if you see people with a lot of testosterone, this area becomes very prominent. It becomes very bony. It becomes very Frankenbrow. And these people almost always have very strong athletic abilities. They tend to work better when they're in charge of a group versus when they're part of a group. So these people are very, very achievement oriented, athletic. They tend to be get it done people. But anybody can have this marking. But I'm just explaining why this area is considered a wood area, because it's related to the idea of testosterone and dopamine. Yes, locking down emotions is what creates these lines. What happens is when somebody decides, I am never going to let that amount of anger out again, what a person has literally done is they've taken their ability to achieve. If this is the range that they have to express, they've taken that energy and gone. And so now this is as far as they'll ever let themselves go. Now, early in life, it doesn't seem to be quite an issue, but as you hit your late 20s, early 30s, this thing tends to manifest as an inability to launch. It tends to manifest as self-sabotage, because at one level, these people are still trying to prove to that person they got angry at that they were right, that they were, that's one of the aspects of it. The other is that to achieve beyond a certain level, they have to tap into more of their innate power. But because they've decided that they're never going to express that level of power again, they only reach a certain level of achievement, in the area, and then they either self-destruct and leave, they get bored and leave, or they find a new interest and leave. So I've met lots of people who are still in their mind fighting a battle that happened years ago, and they will become very, very proficient in a particular area, reach a certain level of fame or notoriety in that area, and then just blow themselves up because they've put a governor on their ability to achieve. So of all the markings, this one is really, really something we got to clear, right? We call it a suspended needle or suspended sword. Barbara says, interesting. I'm a master at hiding emotions and you can see it on my face. Yes. Yes, you can. Right. And I'm using the editorial you on this. But here's the thing. And this is, again, why I really love the face reading technologies is once you see it, now you can manage it. And you can keep it from managing your life. In other words, when I look at somebody and I see they have a lot of grief, a lot of sadness, if I see that they have a really strong brow bone, I know right away these people will probably be very, very good achievers, but they need to feel like they're in control, right? They don't take to micromanaging very well. And so I'm not going to put them in a job where people are constantly looking over their shoulder and they have to answer to somebody all the time. If they're just not going to thrive in that environment, right? If I see someone with a lot of fear, I'm not going to put them necessarily in a position where they have to deal with fear, like door-to-door sales, right? If I see someone with a lot of fear here, a lot of timidity, right? Putting them in a place where they have to go in and talk to perfect strangers, right? That may not be the best fit for them. Whereas somebody who has a strong jaw, strong chin, strong forehead, they'll walk up to just about anybody, right? Again, other things can mitigate that, but that's the whole idea is once you understand not just the emotions, but all the architecture of the face, because every single aspect of the face has multiple meanings and multiple dimensions. But you have to start with something that you can use right away. And so we start with personality and temperament, emotions, decision-making, public face, private face, and then we go into the facial architecture, right? Because you can take the emotions and just put that to work. You can go out right now, go to Starbucks, go to a local diner, and talk to people about their face. And they'll talk to you for hours, and you'll be amazed at how accurate you are, right? And because you're talking about their favorite subject themselves, you'll wind up getting a lot of free stuff. This is before you use things like the echo technique or 3 magic questions or resistance removal protocol or 7 magic language patterns or attractivity protocols or anything else that we teach you in the packages. Why? Because people love people who make them feel good about themselves and who give them the opportunity to talk about their favorite subject, which is always ourselves. Okay. So really, really powerful skill set. Barbara says, you're amazing, David. Thank you for dedication to teaching us. Oh, you're welcome. Just go out and use it. That's all I ask. Go out, use it, tell other people about it, tell them where you got it, right? Become a face reader, become someone who is an agent of what I consider citizens of David at whatever level you're at to be agents of change. I can't do it alone. You guys, I'm giving you guys the power to create the world you want to create, starting with you, and then making everybody else's world that you encounter a better place. Let's just pay it forward, right? There's abundance everywhere. We just got to get the bad programming out of our head, get the emotions cleared, so we can see the world through a set of filters that empower us instead of giving us all the reasons why we have to fail, or why we can't afford something, or why it's going to take too long, or why it's not worth the effort, or blah, 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 blah. All the things that are trying to keep us the same. Okay, because the one thing that you can guarantee will stay the same is that things will change. So how do we adapt? Okay, let's see what else I got on my little bag of tricks here for you. Okay, what about further down the middle of the face between the brows? Well, that's the marking I just gave you, Courtney. So are you talking? Hold on a second. Let me erase this. Well, okay, so I very rarely see lines that extend down this far. I don't think I've ever seen it. But usually there's probably something going on with their spine, because in Chinese medicine, this area relates to certain locations. So for example, the spine and the back are in the nose, but the spleen and the pancreas are right here. So if I see lines and markings in here, I'm going to start asking about different levels of what's going on with their blood sugar. Do they have any back or neck issues? And I'm going to try to determine at what level this marking is telling me something's going on. So, and I've never really seen lines that go all the way down like this. I just haven't seen them. Doesn't mean they're not out there, but that would be what I would extrapolate they would mean. What I have seen, though, is I've seen lines that start up here and go down like this into the eye, into the orbital socket itself. And when you see these lines, what you're seeing is somebody who's engaged in what we call anxiety or pensiveness and overthinking. This area is related to the spleen and the pancreas, which, as far as the Chinese medical system is concerned, are the same organ. And they almost always relate to blood sugar and digestion. The emotions associated with this area is anxiety, pensiveness, overthinking. So when you see lines in this area, this person's almost always just constantly thinking. The brain just never shuts down. And so it's starting to drain their spleen and pancreas energy, which can lead, by the way, to blood sugar issues. Blood sugar issues and thyroid issues go hand in hand with this a lot of times. And so let me just erase this. So a lot of times what you'll see at the bridge of the nose is a little line or divot. And when you see this line across the bridge of the nose, right? The next thing I do when I see that line is I look at their eyebrow, specifically the last half of the eyebrow. Okay? Why is that? If I see this line and then half of their eyebrow is like very sparse or faded, high probability this person has thyroid issues. Okay. Now, it may not be diagnosed, but chances are there is a predisposition towards a weak thyroid or hypothyroid. If I look at that eyebrow and I look and I see a line here, but I don't see one here, then I'm going to ask if they have neck issues. Or blood sugar issues. Because that a line here almost always indicates blood sugar issues of some kind. So it's usually a problem with their diet. They're not eating well. Doesn't necessarily mean that they've got diabetes or they're pre-diabetic. It does mean that they probably have erratic or irregular blood sugar. And so once again, they need to focus more on their diet and their exercise regimen. Whereas if I see a horizontal line down here, they need to spend more time relaxing and meditating and focusing on breath work. Okay. So we got a couple more. Any questions about any of the tactics or any of the traits that we've covered so far? Yes or yes? No? Yes, no? We good? Okay, so let's finish up. Once again, before we move on, if you haven't clicked that link, we're coming down to last call. So by all means, make sure that you grab your special program, the Secrets of Face Reading Home Study Course. It's a $1,997 value. It's going to come with the Defense Against the Dark Arts Home Study Course, $1,997 value. We're going to give that to you free. You're going to get the Identity by Design home study course valued at $1,497. We're going to give that to you free. You're going to get the People Reading for Fun and Profit home study course, $1,497 value. Once again, absolutely free. You're going to get the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Trial Program and 13-year video archive valued at $891. We're going to give that to you for free. We're going to give you the Face Reading for Fun and Profit level 2, $1,997. And finally, last but not least, you're going to get that Killer Influence VIP super ticket for the training in January 23rd to the 27th. It's a $3,150 value. Total combined value for this particular package training program is $13,026. You can get it all for one low installment of just $997, or you can click that link and get 3 easy installments of just $397. You're going to just click the link www.nlppower.com/face, www.nlppower.com/FACE, and do that now. So you'll be one of the first 21 to get those fast action bonuses. All right. Last but definitely not least, every now and then you're going to see somebody that has lines that go from the outer canthus, just like a joy line, but rather than stopping at the eyebrow, it continues all the way up. When we see these lines, I recommend you run the other way. And I mean that with love. These are what we call mania lines. These are things that you'll see in people who are borderline, manic depressive disorder, megalomania. These are people who have too much fire. Their heart is very fiery, and so they're prone to very exaggerated, hyperactive behavior. You see this once again in bipolar disorder. Some borderlines have it. And so this is unhealthy fire. This is too much heart fire. And so their mind is always racing. They can be very creative. They can be very physical and physically aggressive. These people have a tendency, especially when that fire really starts to flare, to behave in more narcissistic, sociopathic ways. They tend to get very grandiose in their behavior sometimes. But they're erratic because it's fire. And so fire is sometimes intense, sometimes it's low. But you'll see that if they're suffering from chronic long-term stuff, you'll see these long lines that go up past the eyebrow. Remember, if they stop before they reach the eyebrow, you're looking at basic happiness and joy. But if they extend up, we recently had someone in the White House who was up at 3 o'clock in the morning texting, was the poster child for some of these markings. Okay. Not passing judgment. I'm just saying these are examples, right? These people have, while that fire is flaring, have a seemingly boundless energy, but when they crash hard. Okay. Another thing you can look at, every now and then people are going to go through very trying, problematic, dark times in their life. And during these dark nights of the soul, they often come out on the other side of it with some kind of a spiritual realization or epiphany that changes their identity. It changes them on a characterological level about their place in the universe. And many times when they have those spiritual insights, they'll mark with these diagonal lines that tend to travel upward from the forehead and usually start to emanate a little bit out from the third eye area. We call these transformation lines. And so you'll see these a lot of times in people who've gone through very intense, negative, dark times and come out of it on the other side with these spiritual insights about themselves and the world and the people that they're liberating with. So a lot of times if people are very intense spiritual practitioners and meditators, you'll see markings that look like this. They're almost like little wings. We call these Buddha wings. And so people who have very open third eyes, you'll see those manifest when they're doing their meditations and spiritual practices. So Barry's asking, are the illustrated facial lines representative of a face that's relaxed? Yes. One of the things that we look at is when people express certain emotions, certain types of lines that are hidden below the surface will become obvious. But what we look at first is, what is a person's face like when they're not trying to make an expression, when they're not laughing, or when they're not crying, when they're not showing anger or venting anger? What does their resting face look like? And the more prominent these lines and markings are when the face is resting, the more intense wells of feeling and emotion they're holding on to. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, good. All right, and that, I believe, concludes our facial map. Anybody have any questions that I can answer before I turn you loose on the world? What questions do you have, if any? Once again, please remember, again, I'm trying to avoid giving you guys the scarcity, but the truth is, if I don't, you won't take action, and I want you to change your life. So remember that when I log off the webinar, the fast action bonuses, the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program, the Face Reading Level 2, and the VIP Super Ticket for Killer Influence, they go away. You will no longer be able to get those. You can still call Moss and Mia up until 11:59 p.m. tonight and get the regular package and all the bonuses, but you will lose on the fast action bonuses. Bags under the eyes, if they're puffy, they usually indicate unshed tears or poor water metabolism. If the bags under the eyes are dark, like almost like a bruise, then you're looking at tired kidneys and usually poor water metabolism as well. So if I see someone with that, they're probably not sleeping well, which means their kidney energy is very low, which also equates to poor water metabolism. You're welcome. What else you got? 2 minutes and then we're done. All right. Yes, poor water metabolism. Yes. So sometimes if they're puffy, they'll usually be retaining water, or as is often the case, they're holding on to unshed tears. So if I see puffy here, I want to look here. Do they have any sadness, grief, or sorrow lines? Do they have any lost love lines? If I see those, then I'm almost 75% certain that they haven't finished grieving over something. Right? Sometimes it's an old memory that was re-triggered by a recent thing, and they're puffy. But I also look at the coloration as well. All right. Well, in the words of the immortal Carol Burnett, I'm so glad we had this time together just to have a laugh or sing a song. Seems we just got started, and before you know it, comes the time we have to say so long. Good night, my friends. Click that link, grab your package, and we'll see you January 23rd through the 27th in San Diego for Killer Influence, Secrets of Covert Hypnosis. Good night. God bless. Post your questions, like and share. We'll see you on the other side. Take care.